Hello? Am I here? Oh, I boomered too close to the sun. Ugh. Okay, I think I'm here. Yeah, I'm here. Oh my god, I boomered too close to the sun. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that. Oh, okay. Well, I just boomered too close to the sun. I accidentally deleted my stream from existence. And now I need to go and replace the link because it doesn't work anymore. I can't believe I did that. I saw like a bunch of you were waiting for stream to start, and then I boomered so hard I deleted my stream. This is a new stream link. Hello. I don't listen. Yeah, Discord said that's why the TV told me it no longer existed. It's me. I boomered. I deleted my stream. But I'm here. I'm queer. I'm ready. Lord Jesus. Lord Jesus, save me from my boomerness. I am a boomer. It's me. I'm the boomer. Well, while people are shuffling in because they're going to have to come to the realization that I deleted my stream, let me grab this for you. Okay, so Brittany's live. Brittany's live. Oh, I didn't switch this thumbnail. I got to do that. Okay, Brittany's live. Okay, that's good. Okay, but since I boomered too close to the sun, let's grab this. Brittany Simon on the Do Not Worry podcast. Just to shout out Anthony for having me the other day on his stream. Thank you so much. Here I am. Here it was. It was fabulous. I'll go ahead and link the stream in the chat. If you guys didn't see it, I already told members yesterday, but since it happened on my day off, you might not have seen it. You can go watch it. It was a great collab. Happy to be there. Happy to have the conversation. We actually briefly spoke about today's kind of topic today, Contra and Hassan and stuff, just briefly. So today will be kind of that. So my Discord asked me, if you guys didn't see, ContraPoints did this 3-hour conversation on Joshua's show, Doom Scroll. And I didn't want to watch the full 3 hours with you because, to be honest with you, we would be here for 7 to 10 hours. Knowing us, we'd pause every 2 seconds. You know, it'd just be crazy. So what I decided to do instead is I watched it on my own and I just like copied or I made notes of timestamps that I thought were the most notable. And I thought we could just watch them together. I'm not going to, you know, pre-monologue too much before we jump in. I'm just going to watch the segments with you. We'll have a conversation. We'll move on. I think what's interesting, just going into this, is that Contra basically comes out as like a liberal, even though we knew that was sort of true. I want to sort of do the philosophy kind of thing, because we do philosophy through pop culture here, and just ask ourselves, why do people in the perfect position to be radical, why do they settle for the status quo? And I think that is the conversation we should have, right? Chat said, are you getting a plaque? Maybe. So basically the way that it works is you have to wait a specific amount of days, and they check your account. And if I qualify under their requirements, they will send me a plaque. It's not just reaching 100,000. You have to have other qualifying you have to qualify in other ways, but I am technically available to apply, which I have done. And if they give me the okay go, they will send me a plaque. And we'll put it right there where the flowers are. It'll be great. And I appreciate you guys help me get to 100K. It really does mean a lot. Even though it feels like it doesn't matter anymore, it matters and it makes a big difference. And hopefully we'll encourage more people to watch and join us too, because I would love to have more philosophy girlies in the chat, right? The Discord said, I love seeing Brittany collab with YouTubers with good audiences. Yeah, like it was, and thank you for saying it was well-deserved. I appreciate that. I really enjoyed the collaboration. I enjoyed the very blunt and good faith questions that allowed me to answer those questions in good faith. I think one of the things I'm learning about this space is just how it's really a blessing to find people who are so good faith in this space. It's just so hard. Like, it's so difficult. And so I'm hoping maybe this is a crew of good faith guys. So fingers crossed. I hope it stays that way. I'd like that to be the truth. You know, I'd like that to be true. And then hold on, wait. Oh, yesterday on my members video, I wasn't sure if I was going to clip it and post it to the public, but we continued covering the 4B versus the married decenter men girlies. And they're still all going at it. And now Teresa's involved and it's a whole thing. And I'm like, like, it's just like, oh my God. A part of me wanted to even reach out to some girlies and get a conversation going. We'll see if that happens. I don't know. I think the dilemma is like, I'm not a part of those communities directly, but I do, because I'm a gender deconstructionist, I'm in a different part of decentering men, which is decentering patriarchy. So it is very interesting. And I think this really relates to just this conversation here today. About Contra, and I don't know why she doesn't like Hassan. Like, I know why I have issues with Hassan, but even I wouldn't say I don't like Hassan the way Contra seems to not like Hassan. It's very confusing because they both are willing to work with Democrats. Then why aren't you both working with Democrats? Like, I know why I won't work with the Democrats, but why aren't you working with the Democrats? You know what I mean? It's very interesting, and I don't really get it, but let's watch it together and see how we feel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start us off here, and I'm not going to clip today's stream. It's just because it's like all about Contra. I'll just let people watch on their own. I just don't think it will make sense to clip it. Though I'm sure I don't want to do it. Okay, I'm out of spoons. Today's commentary day. I'm still editing my vegan video for a commentary channel. This is what we're going to do. I've decided. Okay, so ContraPoints. How online politics became real life, which is sort of a already annoying title to me. Because what do you mean, how did online politics become real life if on the internet is real life? Like, what a myth that the internet was never real life. Right? Like, what a myth that we could turn on a computer and it wouldn't be a reflection of our character. And I think that's what drove a lot of men to joining the most disgusting websites on the internet ever, because you got it into your head that it wasn't real life. But it is definitely real life. So I don't know why we even let ourselves believe that the internet wasn't real life, but here we are. So let's go ahead and watch this. I'm going to point one to it. And this is the first time stamp I saved.
How do we make online discourse work? I think it's in the conspiracy video, but you talk about we need good conversations to do democracy. I'm paraphrasing here, but what are the kind of preconditions for this Habermasian public square? How do we have good conversations for deliberative democracy?
It's harder than ever, is my feeling. Like, I used to think this was possible. I mean, I used to go on these like debates even with so there's two problems with it, with debating right-wing people. One is that the right-wing people they're not interested in participating in a Habermasian public square. They're interested in owning you for clicks, right?
Damn it.
Yeah. The second, and then the second problem is that your own leftist audience feels betrayed that you dared talk to someone on the right because
Okay, I just got to pause here already. Sorry, girl. I also think, given that I have collabed with Contra in the past, and given that I have collabed with people in this space enough, I will also say that none of you want to have real conversations because all of you are too afraid of it getting personal because you want to separate your personal action from your politics, which you cannot. And so I do think that's the other part of the problem, is that, like, who cares about debating Republicans and racists? We should be having open discussions with each other, and we should be having discussions about building coalition. And the issue is that everybody wants to talk about systems and nobody wants to talk about personal, as if those things aren't completely like intertwined, right? This is my real life. This is your real life, right? So I think this is always going to be the problem in this space. And it's always the criticism I get, like, oh, Brittany makes everything personal. I'm not trying to make it personal to weaponize it. I'm trying to make it realistic that conservatives are making it personal. Conservatives will not vote for you because they personally think black people suck or trans people suck or gay people suck. They personally vote personal. So when you sit there and you're like, I'm not going to make it personal, I just want to talk about systems, like, girl, right? So like, this is part of the problem I already have with like this conversation about debate spaces or conversation spaces, right? Just that I think you're misunderstanding what she said. No, we're using what Contra is going to say or what they've said to have a larger conversation. That's how it works, right? If you're new to my channel, that's how conversations happen on this channel. We're using real situations to have larger conversations about situations, right? So already she made a great point that conservatives just want to own you, right? Like, that's a part of their process because conservatives don't mind making it personal. They will full on talk about your affairs and talk about your racist tweets and talk about shit you've done, right? But the other problem with that is that they weaponize the personal versus expanding on the personal, talking about how the personal impacts our voting, talking about how we personally are impacted by the internet and we show up this way. Contra is so personally impacted by how the internet treats her, it moves her politics. J.K. Rowling was so impacted how she was personally treated by the internet, she became more transphobic. We're talking about how men are so personally impacted by left-wing politics that they personally feel a move to the right because they are being personally impacted, right? That's the point.
suggest that maybe means you're betraying them and you're maybe thinking of going over to the right, because why would you talk to someone on the right if you weren't on the right?
Right.
It's very hard to overcome this guilt by association thing. So it's like a pincer. Like you're discouraged from doing it, both by the way you're treated by the right, which is as an exploitable resource for them to create attention moments, and you're criticized on moral grounds by the left for associating with the enemy. Which kind of
now, obviously, if this is true, but this is also the inauthenticity that I felt existed in the space we were in. Contra and I were in that space together. Like, behind the scenes, her and Lindsay Ellis directly blamed me for Contra's life getting hard, which was bullshit. Your life got hard because you decided not to own the responsibility of association and taking a step as a leader. You were the largest microphone. If you didn't want the power, you should have pivoted your content, right? We had that stupid brunch gate with Shoe on Head and all those people, right? And everyone blew up at Contra during that time. And so there was backlash. There was, why are you talking to Shoe on Head? And I agree. The audience was right. We shouldn't have been at that breakfast. We shouldn't have been at that brunch. But we had it in our minds that we could build bridges with people who ultimately made millions of dollars and or built platforms on being bigoted. The audience was right. But instead of acknowledging that the audience was right, I do think Contra ran away. And instead of, putting the responsibility on her shoulders, her and Lindsay were like, Brittany made this worse for Natalie. Like, girl, grow up. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, we are in one of the most intense times of our political history. And Natalie is sitting here on a podcast talking about, like, Hassan's not doing enough. The revolution isn't coming. Where's the revolution? I don't know, girl, start it. Like, you're in politics. You're talking to politicians. You're directly involved. Do something. I'm not. Notice that I took a decision. I made a decision not to be political. Like, I talk about politics, but I made the decision not to work with politicians because it's unethical. They've decided, all of these people have decided to be political, so be political, right? Like, I want to have that conversation. I want to have the conversation that says, we were young and barely knew how to handle it, but now that we're old, now what? Because that's the problem. Now what? We're all almost 40. Now what? And that's what I'm saying. Now what?
Made it, to me, just not worth doing at all.
Right.
Now, I'm sure some people are able to do this. Like, men have to do this. I'll just say it. I can't do it. Like,
debate.
True.
Yeah, debate favors men.
Yeah.
True. Patriarchy.
It favors assertiveness, aggression, owning the enemy with facts and logic. Oh, even, like, it's not that women can't do that. They can. It's just that when women do it, it's perceived as, like, unfeminine aggression.
Did you ever see that movie?
I think she's right here. I think she's making a salient and very reasonable point that femmes in this space are disregarded even by leftist men, including Hassan. So I agree with that, right? But the dilemma is, and this is the problem, it doesn't matter. Like, you don't have to be here. You don't have to be the ContraPoints. The dilemma is, I think people who get famous and get this popular, they do feel trapped. Even FD talked about this recently, where when you get a bigger audience, you almost feel like you have to silence yourself more because the responsibility of speaking correctly every time is difficult, right? Let's see. Chat says she's right, though. The revolution will not be streamed and Hassan will not get shot for you. Okay, who is the you? I don't know if you are. Who are you? Are you in my? You don't sound like somebody who watches me. Listen. We're not talking about the revolution being streamed. We're talking about right? I agree. And now what, right? So my solution is always philosophy. My solution is always kindness and compassion in doing the work. My solution is always accepting that the world will always be this way. Now what, right? What is your solution? Because I don't understand, right, this idea that, like, even if you combat, like, if you're combative in my chat and you're like, oh, Hassan's not going to take a bullet for you. Okay, and whoever needed him to do that anyways, right? Like, we know Hassan can't be, like, liberation movements are never going to be they're never going to be moved forward by white cis men who are rich. Like, we know this. Okay, it was never going to be Hassan. Hassan is just the now guy, but, like, he can't be the future. We know that. Okay, so come to my chat with something reasonable, right? Like, we're talking about something very serious. We're talking about a woman with all of her resources and time, with all of her education, decided to come out as a liberal in 2026.
Town Bloody Hall.
No.
Jermaine Greer and who was the, I forget the name of the writer. Do you remember the writer? Norman Mailer, right?
I have seen that. Yeah.
But it's like I'm not on his side of the argument, but, like, his basically being a dick to them
Yeah.
was incredibly powerful versus these, like, very comprehensively
Yes,
and, like,
yes.
well-spoken arguments against him. And he's just like, yeah, that's all bullshit. Like, and it was,
yeah.
it's really strong in a debate format.
Yeah. Trump, just
He's
by
the
pure force of
perfect- yeah.
intimidation and like aggressive posturing, is able to be perceived as winning.
So
Yeah.
I agree that debate is in some cases necessary.
Yeah.
And I don't think, just to be very clear on all these things, like, it's good to have leftist video essays. It's good to have leftist
Yeah,
podcasts.
yeah,
We're just
yeah.
saying that it is insufficient to win in the scale of a national election. And if that's the strategy that we're trying to achieve,
Absolutely.
we
Yeah.
need more on top of it. What do you think about, what about repealing Section 230 for platforms that have algorithmic recommendation?
I don't know. I mean, I algorithmic recommendation as opposed to what?
As opposed to like Substack, Patreon, you voluntarily
Okay.
opt
Yeah, yeah,
into
yeah.
a thing. It's
Yeah.
not recommended to you. And so that
Yeah.
reduces proportionally the sensationalism and the
That should get on Twitter or the
advertising revenue
YouTube
engine.
algorithm, yeah.
It doesn't necessarily eliminate extremism,
Yeah.
but it means you have to like
Seek it
click
out
in.
almost,
Yeah, you gotta opt in.
It's hard not to think that that would be good at this point for
Yeah.
me. I think it's, I don't know how I don't know. I think that's going to be thought very intensely by the most powerful people in the country, because that's how they make a lot of money from it.
So not
Yeah.
to, I agree,
Yeah.
but
I'm going to skip.
I always thought it was crazy that we were talking about Kropotkin so much. The term breadtube, which derives from the conquest of bread, I have no idea where that came from. I always thought it was weird that it was applied to me.
yeah.
I don't talk about Kropotkin. Like, I'm not an anarchist. Like, I don't know. But yeah, I do think that, like, I don't want to entirely disparage the activity of reading theory,
Mhm.
but I do think that, like, this kind of like priestly tendency of the left that
Yeah.
it, like, that there's this,
I like it. Okay.
well, it's interesting,
Yeah.
yeah, if you're an intellectual.
Mhm.
But like, I think that is 19th century social and political theory like really the thing that we need to insist everyone be literate in?
hmm
I don't think it should be. I mean, I think it's, like, again, useful for, I suppose you can call it a vanguard. I don't call myself a vanguard. That seems a little too self-congratulatory. I mean, I don't think that I'm useless. I'm not trying to be overly self-disparaging when I say that video essays are not the solution
Sure,
to the
sure.
media
Yeah, yeah.
environment. But I also like recognize that there's like serious limitations to
We
how.
wouldn't be doing this if we
yeah.
thought it was useless.
Right, I wouldn't be doing
Yeah.
it if I thought it was useless. But it's also, like you say, insufficient.
To watch part 2 of this episode, you can support the show on Patreon.
I found the exact same thing, which is that, like, when you switch from academia to social media, you know, you get rid of one problem, which is the like hyper specificity of the, like, I mean, the reason the moment I dropped out of my PhD program was the moment when I was having to transfer from getting a master's degree, which I was doing as part of the PhD, to like, okay, it's time to write a dissertation and choose a specialty. And it's like, do I want to spend the remainder of my 20s thinking about the same 3 paragraphs of Hegel? Like, no, I don't want to do that. That is like,
You don't want to do that?
like a profound like waste.
I know people who've been doing
of
that for
time.
free.
Yeah, right.
Some people will.
So it seemed, I mean, because like what I like about philosophy, like, as an undergrad, is like how it's this like sweeping tour from like Plato to like Foucault or whatever. And it's, you know, you're doing like a different thing every week, and it's like really exciting to encounter all this new stuff.
Sure.
And so I thought, like, you know, social media might be a better place to do that, but you end up having the opposite problem, which is everything's so superficial. There's not very much depth. You can do research, but if you do a lot of research, it takes forever to make the video.
Yeah.
I'm now
Yeah,
on about
yeah.
a 1 main channel video per year schedule, which is not, I mean, it's not certainly not sustainable for someone who's trying to get big on social media. That will never get you there.
Yeah.
I can do it because I've spent 10 years getting to the point so I can get away with it.
Yeah, you can take basically a
Yeah.
research sabbatical,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then you produce
And that's
like
basically
the
what
book
I do.
or the video.
Yeah, that's basically what I do. But yeah, that is not that is not going to make you a TikTok star.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, you know, it's interesting though, because, you know, you always have to be the right place, right time. And Natalie really was. And then she was promoted by a team of people. They had a group. There was a group. There was a gang. Okay. There was a gang. And the gang prompted her up. And then the gang, I don't know if the gang's still together, but I had insight to the gang. And what I understood about it is there was an expectation. Okay. Because there were people in that group who, when they met me, were like, what do you do on the internet? And I was like, this is what I do. And they're like, did you go to school? And I was like, no. And they were like, and I was like, okay. And I literally had that moment where I was like, you think you're better than me? And then I was like, well, maybe you are better than me in the sense that like your videos are better, but also like, is that the energy that I want to join? And like, that was the problem, is like, there was this gang. And this gang is still to this day one of the most prominent groups of people on the internet. And I don't blame people. They're known as the most left groups, but they're not leftists. Most of them are not. They are, but they're not. And so the thing is, like, I'm not comparing them to me, to them. I'm saying I decided to do something different because what I saw, their direction, I said, oh, I can't do that. That's unethical. For Brittany's subjective values, because I don't believe in objective morality, right? So when we engage in philosophy, we ask ourselves, why do educated people, philosophy majors or people who engage in philosophy and politics, why do they settle for? Why do they make these decisions? Now, a lot of them had been canceled, right? A lot of them had issues with the internet. A lot of the progressives on the internet came for them. And I think there is something to be said about that. I also think there's a dilemma when some of the largest voices now are being held to a higher standard, and maybe they're not ready to do it because their real life is stressful, right? There's a part of real life that's happening that is stressful. You know what I mean? And so when you see that, you see the, and I get it because I've definitely had to leave YouTube a lot because of my personal life, right? But that's the question, is like, when are we going to treat this like work? And then when are we going to recognize that our personal lives do impact how we show up? And this is why politics is personal and personal is political. But we also have to understand that, like, this is why the world is the way that it is, because none of us are exempt from contributing to the harm of the world. All of us have problems. All of us are contributing bad. I've done it. You've done it. We're all going to do it in the future. The question is, how do we be a little less bad every day? Right? So why in this year of 2026 did Natalie make the decision to make this video? To do this collaboration, to, obviously Joshua is getting the benefit of having Natalie on the show, right? He's also interviewed Hassan, for the record, and he's interviewed a lot of the people. So he wins out. This is a social positive for him. What is the net positivity for Natalie? Is she coming back? Is she making a statement? Is she No. Now, I don't know how much Natalie's making on Patreon, and maybe that doesn't matter. I believe the number was, when she went private, like $20K a month. I don't know if that's true. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But it kind of sets into motion this idea of individual creators bringing in this much income. Michael Burns has talked about it recently. Like, a lot of people have talked about it. Like, when you're a big creator making in that much, and I don't know if that's true. I don't know if she's still making that much. I don't know if she's making more. I don't know what the numbers are. Right? You see the issue with being creatives in this space, and also forgetting that we're lucky enough to be full-time artists. That's how I see myself. I'm a full-time artist. I'm very lucky. It's very crazy that I can do this full-time. Like, I feel insanely blessed. I'm also working off a completely different financial reality than everyone else, which is absolutely fine. Again, I live within my means. But the point is that when people say, well, what's the difference between you and Natalie? I don't know, millions of dollars. I don't know. The ability to actually take a year off YouTube and post a video once a year. I don't know, the difference between having to work 6 days a week and work one. What's the difference between you and Hassan? I don't know, the same thing. Like, people keep doing this thing where they're not understanding the privilege and intersection at play is huge. It's huge. And so that's why they're held to a higher standard, because you have more access, right? Like, you have more access. Now, I believe Natalie also does produce Patreon-only content, which I produce members-only content for YouTube, because, fun fact, my Patreon is 18+, because I don't want teenagers on my Discord, which means Patreon won't allow me to actually upload to Patreon, and it won't allow me, it shadow bans me. So for my ethics, because I don't want teenagers in my audience on my Discord, because I have a philosophy Discord, I want only adults there. The punishment is less people join my Patreon, because that lack of videos being placed there adds limitation. It's not that teenagers are not becoming patrons. It's that Patreon won't let me post for members because I'm 18+. Even though it's not safe for work. It's definitely safe for work. Do you get what I'm saying? So the system is this, the limit is, this also is a conversation that I've been seeing on TikTok, where it's very interesting that people keep giving money to the largest creators instead of thinking to themselves, let me give that money to other small creators. And this is the difference of value. So I never give money to big creators. Like, if I want specific content, yes. But generally, if I think you have enough income, I stop giving and I give it to somebody else. The idea being that my $5 or $10 a month does not need to go to people who already make a milli, who already make 10K a month. Like, it needs to go to people who are making 30K, 60K, 70K. It does not need to go to, and it needs to go to people with good income, like good content too. So that's my brain. So that's why there's always this question of, like, you'll be watching a stream and there's like, oh my God, 75 gifted. And you're just like, 75 gifted to this person who already. So again, when we talk about ethics and morals, it really is encompassed in the personal. How do you personally spend your money? How do you personally exist in the world? And that's why these people are under so much scrutiny, not because Natalie's evil or Hassan is evil, but because they have decided to be and embrace the reality of, and they won't stop tweeting. If Natalie disappeared from the internet forever, I'm pretty sure she's made enough money to do this. She doesn't have to be this person. It is a choice. She has free will. She can make a decision. Hopefully. I think she has. Maybe she's not engaging in free will. Maybe that's why she's stunted. Maybe that's why in 2026 she came out as a liberal, which is insane, right? That's kind of crazy. Why would you make this decision?
That's not, you know.
Yeah.
And I used to do much smaller, you know, lower ambition videos, which is how I kind of built the following in the first place.
Yeah, but you have to kind of like mature in your creative practice, and then also just the world changed a lot.
It changed a
in
lot,
that time.
Yeah,
So,
completely.
yeah, I had this like, we've got, so in addition to the podcast, I run a arts nonprofit, and we have an educational wing for that. And Tommy, who runs the courses over there, was saying that, you know, this whole syllabus, like all this material is kind of like around the Mark Fisher, slow cancellation of the future. Like,
Hold on, Chad says, what exactly did she do wrong? Are you a Zionist? Natalie recently came out, recently, right? She made her decision. I disagree on an ethical foundation, her stance on Israel-Palestine. She could not with her full chest come out and say free Palestine, right? I don't owe her allegiance. We don't owe her commitment. We don't owe her viewership, right? She came out and said she's a liberal. No. She came out and said basically like, but Israel too, right? No, right? She came out and basically lukewarmed her way through this. Again, you don't have to agree, but from an ethical stance, like, what am I supposed to be excited about? What am I supposed to be, you know what I mean? Like, do you want me to be excited about this?
Capitalist realism, and like that, like we're in the new world now. Like Trump broke neoliberalism. Like we actually know what comes after, and it's like something worse. It's multipolar, it's imperial, whatever, mercantilism. But yeah, the way that the world transformed and your maturation in your creative career, you have to kind of like tackle this new thing in a different way. And I don't think that there's at least.
Yeah, and Ted said, don't forget she's against Cuba, Brit. There is a conversation about Cuba at some point in this interview or Natalie's work where I was so confused about her hate on Cuba. Oh, she was tweeting about it. She was tweeting about it. Like, why are you being a hater, Gator, bro? People are suffering. Stop being a hater. People are suffering.
In my survey of the space, I haven't seen someone who's producing.
She's just a negative Nancy. She's a negative Natalie. Okay, that's the problem.
Like short 20-minute kind of interesting, useful commentary on it. It's more like this long form, almost documentary video essay format that you're doing at the stage.
Well, no, that's really true. I think a lot of the way that I feel like my content has changed over the last 6 years in particular has to do with, well, I used to have a very like progressive like idea of the arc of history, like, and I think that's the product of, you know, the first election I voted in was 2008.
Okay.
Obama winning that year. I mean, now like Obama has lost so much reputation among people on the left that it's like hard to explain how it felt in 2008.
I remember that.
But it was, I mean, it was like 15s that were on Mamdani's.
People were partying in the street.
They were partying in the street, and it felt like, I mean, I think of that like Hunter S. Thompson line about how it felt to be in the summer of, you know, 68 or whatever, and there's like this inevitable sense of like good triumphing over evil, and that like, you know, well, like, racism was over, and now like we were just gonna live.
That worked out great.
And then 2016 happened, and it was possible to sort of, you know, I think I had all kinds of cope for that and all kinds of explanations of why it wasn't actually that bad. And like, well, you know, there's all kinds of reasons I can imagine people voting for Donald Trump. Like maybe they just uniquely hated Hillary, as many people said they did. Maybe they just wanted to try something new and anti-establishment and like, you know, all this. But
yeah, Chad says, I think she's so against the online life, she reactively hates anything the left supports, partly because people in her audience were holding her accountable or to account, and she's like, don't tell me what to do. Yeah, like that's the problem is like, look, I think much smaller creators, much more regular people, like everyday mom and dads, everyday Joe Schmoes are doing more for their communities than these streamers a lot of the time, because we're actually interacting with our community. We're helping our nieces and nephews. We're volunteering in our local communities. Like everyone has their own role to play. So it's not about perfection. It's about when given the opportunity, are you seriously owning the responsibility of it? Because like, again, why would Natalie be interviewed and not someone else? You know what I mean? Why is Hassan the largest creator, right? Like we should question systems, right? And I know I got a bunch of liberals in chat today. You guys, you're really batting for Natalie. Love that for you. But like you act like we don't know stuff. Like we haven't been watching Natalie. Like didn't know Natalie slightly in the past, right? You're acting like we don't have some idea of who this woman is after all of these fucking years. And in this 3-hour interview, she tells us who she is. I don't know why you're doing so much work unless you are a liberal, right? But like, Natalie is a centrist liberal. That's what she is. And so I don't know why you're having a hard time with it. She says in this video, I'm not an anarchist and I'm not a communist. Okay, girl, then what are you? She says she's a liberal. Relax. Let this woman tell us who she is and believe her.
Then when they reelected him last 2 years ago,
that was something different.
That kind of crushed my idea that things were going to get better, and I now have a more like, well.
So when you say a progressive arc to history, you're not talking about like a, you know, multiple centuries teleological development or arc of, you know, feudalism, capitalism, socialism. You're talking about the recent social history of generally people are becoming more progressive, and we'll get Obama and then we'll get someone else who's like more socially progressive.
Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking, right?
I assumed the same thing. I think that was a plausible, reasonable thing to think at that time.
And it was kind of an unconscious assumption, I think. Like, I don't think I would explicitly have stated, oh yeah, we're definitely getting more progressive, you know, politics from here on out. But I think I felt it, that this like Trump thing was a kind of like bizarre aberration that was going to go away, and it's not. So that has kind of forced me to reconsider things. I mean, it also reconsiders the content I kind of make. Like, I don't really do a de-radicalization so much anymore.
Oh, I got a whole like page on this.
We're gonna do
Okay, I've got a good one to throw at you.
Okay,
so we were talking about a general like kind of social progressivism that's happening over the last few decades, and when we're younger, Obama gets elected, and we think it's going to be this way forever on this kind of like constant arc of general social progress. Trump happens, that's a big interruption. However, we have this very weird postmodern conservatism now where Kristi Noem's husband is hyper-conservative, but also dabbling in some, shall we say, unusual habits and behaviors in private.
Well, Republican cross-dressing scandals.
Okay, next time stamp. This one. Wait, did I do that right? Yeah.
He's on the ladder for this, a little bit of a tangent, but do you remember in the atheist community in like, this was probably 2011 or something.
Okay. Remember how I talked about Rebecca Watson and how unfairly she was treated and how what bullshit it was? And remember how I said I always thought it was Richard Dawkins in the elevator, and people were like, why would you say that? Like, that's never been true. She's never named him. That was the rumor on the internet. And this guy's about to say that. He's about to say, I thought it was Richard Dawkins. And then Natalie's going to be like, oh, she never said who it was. There was a rumor. The internet tried to gaslight me, but I was like, I explicitly remember people saying it was Richard Dawkins. And we don't know. We never, I don't think, got a confirmation on who it was. But all these men are associated. All these men got problems.
There was a precursor to Gamergate.
Elevator Gate.
What was it?
Elevator Gate. Is that
Elevator Gate, Was it Dawkins in an elevator with another woman who was speaking at the conference?
It was Rebecca Watson was a woman.
Okay.
And she posted this vlog after an atheist conference in which she described having been approached by a man who...
Oh, she didn't name...
No, she didn't name him. Who...
See? Chad says that I don't think liberals are welcome in your stream, Brittany. As someone who used to enjoy your content, it's disappointing to see. What do you think you're doing right now? What are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you coming into my job and talking when I've set a standard of expectation, when people are literally being genocided, children are watching their families being blown into pieces, and you're busy saying, I don't think I'm welcome here. Well, you'd be more welcome if you would listen and decenter your own ego in a conversation about marginalized people being targeted. Of course you're welcome. You're welcome if you do not center your own ego on the reality that people are universally suffering because of egos. Liberals, to answer the person in chat who said, what is a liberal? Liberals are people who believe the system just needs to be reformed. They're usually capitalistic. Even when they identify as a socialist or a social democrat, they're usually people who think the system just needs reform. We just need better policy. That America is built on something beautiful. We just need to get better. Like, Democrats and liberals really believe the height of their radical movements is like, I'm pro-black, I'm pro-trans, I'm pro-gay, but they do nothing to actually counteract their own biases or prejudice, or even actually put politicians to task. So liberals work within systems versus leftists start at anti-capitalism, anti-racism, all that stuff, and they focus on dismantling the system at large because it's not working, it's never going to work. The USA was founded on genocide, the destruction of people of color. literally built off the backs of enslaved people. And liberals say, yeah, but that used to be the 70s. It's not like this anymore. The liberals will say, yes, like America was racist, but we really aren't as racist as we used to be. Liberals will say, we can't abolish the police because, you know, we need people to like police the street. Liberals work within the system. Liberals think the system just needs a little tweaking. Versus like the system doesn't work. It's built to not work. This is the system working. What is happening right now is the system working. So it doesn't work. It's unethical. It's deeply unethical. Okay? So when you engage with like, who's a liberal, who's a progressive, you know, take something silly like when liberals say, you know, I'm cool with trans people as long as they don't share bathrooms with me. Or, oh, you know, Joe Biden saying things like, I think black kids are smart too. It's like, you know, like anything that feels like not deconstructed, like you haven't really thought about why you're saying what you're saying. And I used to be a liberal, so I get it. Like I was a liberal. You think I don't get it? I absolutely was like, the system just needs to be reformed and you can be an ethical capitalist and maybe there are ways we could just like work with each other. It doesn't work because people aren't actually doing the right thing. Liberals are people who, when they're stressed, all of a sudden they're racist again, right? Like liberals run it. Liberals are the men who voted for Barack Obama in 2012 and Trump in 2016. Liberals are stunted. And this is a philosophy channel that wants to move people forward. Okay? Embodied belief forward. So everybody is welcome in this chat. But don't piss me off and don't ask stupid questions. If you ask a good faith question, there is no such thing as a stupid question. But don't say stupid shit like, oh, as a former viewer, this really disappoints me. Habibi, you're 5 years late. I haven't been a staunch liberal in years. So that means you haven't been watching. You're a fucking liar. Nobody knows your username. And the only reason you're in my chat now is because I'm talking about your girl and you have not been keeping up with the content. Because I have not been... Okay, the version of whatever Britney you remember in years. So, you know what? Don't piss me off.
Like made an advance, you know, in an elevator. I think asked her to come into his room for coffee, and she made a vlog where she said, like, guys, don't do that. Like, no woman wants to be sexually solicited by a stranger in an elevator.
Which was bullshit.
The backlash against that was extreme. Richard Dawkins.
It was ridiculous.
Wrote this, like, comment about how she was, I think, basically like mocking her for being.
And now they're in my chat saying, bro, you're psychotic. Okay, you know what? You had a chance, Habibi. Bye-bye. This is what I'm saying, right? We are talking about the genocide of a population, and they're like, you're a little crazy for me. You're like a little insane. I'm talking about literally people getting kidnapped in the street by ICE agents, and you're like, okay, can we just get along? Can we all just like hang out and get along?
For like the you know, the ridiculous complaints of Western feminists when there are women suffering under the sexism of Islamism,
Classic.
Which is the only thing feminists should be talking about, according to Richard Dawkins, right? But then there was, you know,
Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, all these white men who claim to care about women, but they just hate Muslims. Do not trust these men. Do not trust these men to give a fuck about dismantling patriarchy when it requires patriarchy to think that they know better than Muslim women. And it's not that Muslim women shouldn't deconstruct patriarchy. It's that it's none of your goddamn business while you're going after Islam instead of fighting the patriarchs in your own country. Go fuck yourselves.
There's also other figures like Lawrence Krauss, who had numerous allegations against him, and Michael Shermer. I think it was Lawrence Krauss who turns out to have been emailing Jeffrey Epstein.
We covered this on stream.
Rebecca Watson.
We covered this on stream. Pathetic. Can you imagine emailing Jeffrey Epstein about Rebecca fucking Watson? Disgusting.
Wow.
And about...
Wow. I knew there was some connection why I brought that. Okay.
So the idea that, like, again, this, like, sex scandal in the atheist community, like, that the men involved in this, who were seen as, like, you know, they were widely admired in the atheist community, and at the time it was largely the feminists who were viewed as like these unreasonable nags, like ruining all the fun. But meanwhile, these men were having correspondences with Jeffrey Epstein about how to damage control their sexual misconduct accusations. That's the closest thing to like patriarchy being a conspiracy.
Now, I will say this for people confused. Okay, look, you can be a liberal that says you're a socialist, but you're not an anti-capitalist because your socialism is still within the framework of capital. You can be a communist who's anti-capitalist. You can be a Marxist. You can be other things, but it doesn't mean that you've also deconstructed your racism, even though they're intertwined. A lot of Marxists are still fucking racist because they're not doing the work. So you got to think about this. Like, you have to think about this idea that you can be anti-capitalism and still not have done the work to deconstruct all of your biases, or at least tackled some of the bigger ones, right? So you have to be careful. I know a lot of liberals who have identified as socialists for 20 years, but they're not doing any of the work to combat their anti-racism, right? I mean, they're doing the liberal white combating racism, you know, where white people will be like, liberal white people will be like, I just think like, this marginalized community is so much smarter than people think. Like, I think they're hard workers too. Boo, racism, benevolent racism, right? Racism. So it's like, I get it. You say Shay growing up, like, whatever, insert minority status here. Like, I would trust them with my kids. It's like, okay, why are you being weird? Like, right? So, how the personal and the system interacts is different. That's why you have to deconstruct a lot of the thing. I always, that meme, the Harry Potter meme where Snape turns around and it's like the three of them. And he's like, why is it always you three? The three is capitalism, patriarchy, and racism. It's always those fucking three. Okay? It's always those fucking three. Those fucking three are the fucking problem with everything. Because they're connected to everything. They are the three horsemen. You can't do anything without them. So when people are like, let's dismantle capitalism, you got to do the other two too, because they're all fucking cousins or having threesomes over here, okay? They're all fucking related. You can't just do one or the other. You got to do all three. And usually liberals are on a deconstruction journey of doing one or the other, or saying one thing but not being. And I've done it too, where I was like, I'm progressive. I'm an anti-capitalist, right? Or but then no, like, I'm really learning to incorporate it even still, right? That's actually on my Bert Simon channel. My commentary video for today is about veganism. And it's like, you should be vegan, probably, is the title. And it's basically making the argument that if we want to harm reduce every day and be less violent every day, we have to make these small incremental, like small changes that are difficult, right? They're very hard, by the way. But yet we have to sort of embody this belief, embody this process. And a lot of us haven't embodied anti-racism, right? We haven't embodied anti-bigotry. Natalie is not embodying. Hasan is not embodying anti-patriarchy. He's not. He's engaging with patriarchy so fucking hard, it's obnoxious, okay? Natalie isn't engaging. She's not embodying. She's emotionally, which makes sense. We're all everything we do is emotion. She's saying, it's a lot of like, the personal is political, right? So that's not the problem. And the problem isn't that she uses I statements. I do that all the time. The problem is that she is misunderstanding. And I think the world is also misunderstanding that her commentary is burdened by her lack of personal deconstruction. Hasan's commentary is lacking because it's greased up. It's got a layer of problem because of his personal lack of deconstruction. And that's the dilemma with everything we're doing. Okay? Everything we're doing here, until you face this thing is the reason the world is the way that it is. We are all responsible for the way that the world is. And so you have to constantly introspect and extrospect. Introspect and extrospect. You have to. And this is why people are frustrated with Natalie, because they're like, hey, you are the reason I became a communist and you're not even a communist. You're the reason I became anti-capitalist. And like, what are you doing? Like, you're the reason. And Natalie, I guess I'll show the clip eventually, but she's just like, I can't believe, like, I don't know why people watch me and think I'm a communist. And I'm like, you know what I'm saying? It's not like Natalie hasn't made great content, but the reason many of us fell off her content years ago, many of the reasons I saw behind closed doors, I was like, oh, you guys aren't embodying your values. That's why you think I'm weird, because I'm trying to embody my values. Nothing is more frustrating than somebody who like embodies their values, because then people feel judged. Oh, you think you're better than me? No. And yet, right? And yet, like, no, it's not about being better than you. It's about just saying like, I'm not going to pretend I don't see what I see, right? Same way you shouldn't pretend that you're not seeing something with me if you feel like it's authentic, like a problem or something, right?
I've ever seen, right? Because in general, I discourage the conspiratorial view of these things. Like, patriarchy is not a boardroom of men who conspire against women. It's like a system of structures, right? But there's also a little bit of minor conspiracy.
Well, I mean, you've probably got an email thread of men coordinating against women.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of there's a little bit of conspiring
Davos
going on
like
as well.
There's
right. There's not zero conspiring. Like, to be clear.
Do you similarly think of this as like the kind of early historical example of that libertarian to alt-right pipeline that later became subject to so much conversation, that the kind of atheist, skeptic, libertarian sphere was very close at one point?
I was very involved in this.
I do know. That's what I'm trying to bring up.
I mean, I was 20 years old, so I was I was not a leader of this, but I was a follower.
Yeah. You would attend meetings and things like this?
I did. I went to a few like atheist or skeptic meetups.
Wow.
Sure. Me too.
What was the feeling on the ground there?
Yeah, I went to some conferences. I tried to get involved. I actually became a feminist, a hardcore, like I was like, oh, this is it. Because I saw the way that these communities treated women, myself included. And I was like, oh, well, half these men couldn't even bother to shower. Which usually I do not judge because I know neurodivergency and disability is real. But also, how are you judging me for thinking? But I can't judge you because you smell? You know what I mean? No judgment.
It was mixed. Like there was always these kind of underlying tensions where, I mean, there were people who were attracted to atheism for a lot of reasons. Like I think it retroactively got stereotyped as like fedora wearing Reddit incels or something. And there was that. But it was a more diverse community than people remember. There were women there. There were people who were ex-Muslim apostates who.
Kyle Kulinski was part of it. He's very left. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it was.
Well, very left. See, so we talked about this on Do Not Worry podcast because one of the criticisms, I believe his name was James, he had with me is like my issue with Hassan or Kyle Kulinski or the way that these men you throw around slurs to own the right. Again, when we say, oh, you're very left, I'm expecting some embodiment. And I think because I'm femme presenting and assigned female at birth, what I end up experiencing is philosophy from a more well-rounded perspective because I read female philosophers, I read non-binary philosophers, right? I don't just read the men. I don't just read the white men. I don't just read Western philosophers. And so when we engage in philosophy, we're also having an embodied, humbling relationship to the fact that we are evolved animals on a planet. We are nature experiencing itself, except these people, I still think, they think that humans are the center of the universe. So the dilemma with all of these conversations is, again, like, is Kyle very left? Like, what does it mean to be very left in a philosophical sense? Like, Contra obviously stopped growing, and she had every incentive to stop growing, as chat pointed out earlier. I saw that chat, right? Like money and status and comfortability. Like, why would she challenge herself, right? But even more than that, if you keep, if you don't have friends who good faith challenge you, it's very hard. And it was very hard to know who to trust at the time. And I can understand that as well. I can be very empathetic to not knowing who to trust, right? I totally get it. Except you should have, in some ways, some discernment to know when to trust and to accept that people change their minds and sometimes friendships end and all that other stuff, right? There's a human perspective to this that I think is lacking in all of these conversations because people think it's a distraction for the movement, right? So like Hassan will say that, like, oh, I don't like to focus on trans issues or identity politics because it's a distraction. But what that does is it throws minority people under the bus because, yes, liberal Democrats capitalism objectifies minority status and puts, their bank ads on pride floats, but they suck. Why aren't you acknowledging? Right? Aren't you the one who's not supposed to suck? So why aren't you acknowledging the struggle of minority people in a way that doesn't say, I don't care about this, right? I don't care about this, right? And I know my chat, often people will be like, oh, why don't you talk to Hassan? Wouldn't that be great? But again, how can I bring a man into this space that has openly made rape jokes, who openly is misogynistic, who openly won't have any conversations about the reality of what he does in his personal life and / on stream, so his work life? How do I bring a man on stream who a month ago moved away Rama's N-word slur as not a problem or not an issue, and actually she's awesome, right? It's like there is a way to do this without throwing everyone into the volcano. There is a way to say, here's what Rama should do to apologize and we can move on, but he won't even require that of her, right? So again, when we have a conversation, when we talk about these issues, the problem is like nobody is ready to have a grounded conversation about why Kyle Kulinski can't call people the B word or the R word on Twitter, right? My audience was right to call me out for all the times that I have used words that are like, Brittany, don't say that. And I'm like, and of course you get defensive. Of course you're like, what do you mean don't say that? That's literally like how people talk. And then I'm like, okay, you're right. Right? That's the difference. The difference is that I've embodied it. It goes through my life. Like it goes through my social spaces. It becomes a part of my values, my subjective values. The question is, Are these a part of your values or not? Right? Like, are these just things you say online to move the movement forward? Because that's what happened in 2012 when people voted for Barack Obama, or 2008. And then those same liberals voted for Trump. How could you vote for Trump if you voted for Obama? Because you didn't have embodied values. And Obama is problematic. Obama's a war criminal. Like, there's problems with Obama, right? So we know that as leftists, there's problems with Obama. We also understand, and I'm trying to get it through to you, that just because of the time they were radical doesn't mean they will stay radical. Hassan, there's no guarantee he won't become a conservative. I mean, look at his uncle. So all of us have to constantly deconstruct, or one day we too will become conservative. You are not guaranteed, just like they said in this interview. You would thought, oh, we had Barack Obama and it would continue being more liberal. Nope, that's not how human beings work. We become more conservative as we age because we become stagnant, because we become tired, because we hate children. We don't like their loud sounds. We don't like their 6-7 memes. Instead of embracing that young people usually know what the future is going to be about, and instead of listening to them and seeing that they have some sort of insight into where the future is going, we ignore them and make fun of them because, like, oh, this is so silly. This is so silly. It's about both the wisdom from the older people who are actually being wise and deconstructing, and the new eyes of the young people who are like, you know, I loved when the internet was mad at that white lady for saying build the wall. And build the wall is such a normal, everyday thing you hear in conservative bubbles that even I was like, I love that you guys see that that's racist, because when I was younger, even in today's circles, it's so normal that the fact that young people were like, hey, that's fucking racist. I was like, oh, I'm so proud of you. Because no way was the world ready to have that conversation about building the wall was racist. And so I'm just so impressed. And I know older people are like, what the hell? I don't like, Ethel Kane. Thank you, chap. I don't want to live in that world where, like, this is considered racism. We're talking about a guy who serial cheats, and you guys don't want to call that abusive or predatory, right? Nobody wants to say it because, God forbid, you actually fit into that category. And I'm saying there is a way to redemption. Restorative justice is a belief that leftists have. We believe in rehabilitation. Even if that rehabilitation looks like you staying locked up, you can still be rehabilitated in prison. Not prison, though, because we don't believe in prisons, but you know what I mean. So there is a path forward. There is a path forward. It just requires all of us to do the work with the people that are safe in good faith. So yes, if you have bad faith people, the mob will crucify you. Fuck the bad mob, right? But if you have a good mob, if you have good people around you, good people in your life, it will be easier to transform. The problem is you cannot say things like, well, if you were nicer to me, maybe I wouldn't be racist. Well, if you were nicer to me, maybe I wouldn't be da-da-da-da. No. So that also doesn't work. You can't say, oh, well, maybe if you were nicer to me, I wouldn't be transphobic. That's not good logic, right? Okay, monologue on.
But there was also often an argument around feminism that is very similar to what later happened with...
No, chat. No, chat. Chat says there are good mobs, though, depending on what part of the world you're in. The only mob is disorderly by definition. A mob is a disjointed group of people who are destructive. If you mean a protest, if you mean a liberation movement, if you're talking about freedom fighters, there are words to use in different bubbles. So in this bubble, the word mob, by definition, is bad. Okay? So, a mob of people. So, I don't know what way you're using mob, but just to clarify.
Gamergate. So I think at the time, like, feminism was strongly discouraged. And it kind of boiled over around 2011, I guess, is when Elevator Gate happened.
Yeah.
And then 2012, there was this basically schism, atheist schism, right, where people divided based on, there was a faction that wanted to only focus on atheism and skepticism and hating religion and promoting science. And then there was a faction that also wanted to value progressive, like, social justice issues.
Oh, interesting.
And there was a conflict, and that kind of basically dissolved the entire community.
What was the political leanings of people? Could you categorize them as mostly this or mostly that?
I would say that it initially was like kind of like sort of like left libertarian.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it was like the kind of mainstream, with the caveat that there was a very vocal anti-Islamism that kind of shaded into, and sometimes...
You see, this is a great example. So Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, all these guys who were liberals and Bill Maher and all these people who are doing amazing work combating patriarchal Christian religions turned into conservatives now. They're transphobic, they're Islamophobic, they're all these negative things, but they at the time were radical. Even though they were misogynists, by the way. Christopher Hitchens, one of my favorite misogynists. And when I say that, I mean like he was impactful for my youth, but he was deeply misogynistic, right? He got waterboarded to prove that what was happening in Guantanamo Bay was tortured. He exposed Mother Teresa and her abuse tactics. Like, he wrote an amazing book on his deathbed, still incredibly misogynistic, right? Wrote that whole article about, are women even funny, right? So these are good examples of what might feel like, whoa, this is the future, to, this is now conservative, right?
I'm fully tipped into outright Islamophobia.
But more so anonymous than Ron Paul at that time.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say that it was to the left of Ron Paul. But then I think that the division around, I mean, it basically ran parallel to Gamergate in terms of, I mean, one of the leading atheist YouTubers that I once followed, by 2015, he was making, most of his videos were about Anita Sarkeesian, the games critic, feminist games critic who was so, well, the target of so much obsessive vitriol during Gamergate, right? So I think that, and then this is where like Bannon and Milo Yiannopoulos came in, and they realized this is a politically useful energy.
Yeah. I'm not going to get us in the Christopher Poole. We'll never get out of that rabbit hole. Okay, so I wanted to explore this stuff a little bit because I see a pretty direct lineage from this like YouTube skeptic, atheist, libertarian-ish leaning movement to the constituency that is now this like right-wing populism. It's the same group of people progressing over like 10, 15 years. There's an arc. You can call it a pipeline. You can like watch people move between these successive phases. How has the left changed within that time? We've been talking about this like, let's say 8-year arc. How has the left changed since you started making content?
In a lot of ways, there continues to be a fairly devastating fracture that is downwind of the 2016 Democratic primary.
The long 2016.
And that I think that the effects of that are still felt. I had hoped that it was possible for there to be like a liberal left alliance. By 2024, it came to seem that wasn't possible. This, I think, to me, is a very black-pilling for me, because it seems like it's less possible to make a coalition than I used to. Because in 2017, I had this moment of optimism, right? I had been...
Okay, pause. It's harder to make a coalition. To be clear, let me be abundantly clear. Because people were like, would you march with Hasan? Habibi, I would march with anybody who was marching. Because if I was at the march, we'd be at the march. Right? Ask Natalie the same question, because in this interview, she's acting like she's done anything to make friends with anybody. Even Michael Burns' greatest criticism of Natalie recently was like, do you talk to anybody other than yourself? Because when you're making content isolated, when you're not doing collaborations, you're not talking to people, and you're like very isolated, you're not in the community. She's not in the community, right? So for her to get in this interview and like you know what I'm saying? Like, girl, that's the problem. Is like, that's why I will say, of course I will march with Hasan, because we'll all be at the march, right? But to say that like there is a difference than Hasan needing to come on my personal YouTube channel, right? And like be an unnerving source to my audience, right? That's different. But of course we'd all be at the march together. So that's the dilemma with Natalie, is like, girlie, come on the shows, come hang out with us, but you isolated. So what do you talk, and you have one of the largest microphones. So it's like, what are we doing here?
Full disclosure, I mean, I'm sure that people already know this, but I was like a Hillary Clinton supporter in 2016. I mean, in part,
I'm same.
Not that I disliked Bernie. I did like him.
No,
right?
I caucused for Bernie first, for the record, obviously. My friends and I went, we caucused for Bernie. I was a registered independent at the time. I really hate the two-party system, but here we are. And I'm a registered Democrat now, obviously, because I have to vote from Croatia. So I had to pick a party affiliation, and it was a whole thing. My rebellious streak was over. I wasn't allowed anymore. So anyways, so I caucused for Bernie, and then we obviously threw our support behind Hillary because, well. And then now, of course, Bernie's conservative, right? Like, look at Bernie Sanders. Now I'm like, took you long enough to call it a genocide, bro, and you're in charge. Okay, it's, that's the thing, is like, now look at Bernie. Look how conservative Bernie feels now. Isn't that funny?
I thought at the time, I'd worked on Obama's campaign in 2012. And so I remember just how, like I used to canvass, I used to do phone calls, and just to get people to want, I was like, we're trying to give you healthcare. And it was like pulling teeth to get people to be like, oh, but it's socialism, and he's going to make death panels, and it's Islamic communism, and it's what I mean? Like just
Sorry, I just realized the volume had been turned down for a while. I didn't mean to blow up anyone's ears, but hopefully the volume sounds better now.
We're talking about the Affordable Care Act, not at all a radical piece of legislation, right? But like people have been so like this like anti-socialist strain of American paranoia was so strong that I felt that Bernie Sanders could not win. Then Hillary Clinton lost. And that caused me to rethink things. I was like, my intuitions may be wrong, because I would not have thought Donald Trump would win. Maybe I was also wrong about Bernie Sanders. And so I kind of moved a bit to the left then and felt like, look, we can maybe have a kind of leftist Democratic Party, and then AOC emerged, and that was very promising.
I feel like, chat, maybe there's going to be a mistake here where you said Bernie isn't conservative. He's just he was just on very disappointing and blind spot on Israel. When leftists use the word conservative, anything right of leftism is conservative, because it's old, it's outdated, it's not new. You want to be I want to be the most up to date, the most left, even past whatever's leftist now will be conservative one day. So you have to understand, like, everything is out of date. That's like saying it's not conservative to think women should wear dresses and men should wear pants. That is a conservative belief. Even if it's coming from a radical feminist, it's still a conservative belief. You know what I mean? There are just beliefs that are more about conserving. Even talking about how America is this beautiful country and America is something we should maintain. That's a conservative belief. You know what I mean? Like, that's a conservative belief. So, when we have these conversations, that's why I think sometimes, like, I will criticize people online and they'll be like, why does Brittany think I'm a conservative? And then she called me a liberal. Because, like, in a leftist perspective, liberals are conservative. Like, they're not Republicans. They're not Trumpers necessarily, though they could be. But, like, it's, you know what I mean? So this is the language of this bubble, right?
Then in 2020, of course, Bernie really lost the primary. And I think that I felt like, okay, maybe this is not translating into electoral success so much. And then by 2024, I felt
he lost in a fair fight. He didn't get swindled by the DNC.
I mean, I also personally think the claims of him being swindled by this DNC are somewhat overstated.
Maybe not swindled, but
are they though, Natalie? Like,
at least the institutional power in the DNC was so sizable and potent that the insurgent populist campaign couldn't overcome how much hegemonic power it had. They could pull different levers and get people to show up in South Carolina and this kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely true to some extent. I mean, I think I guess I get a little bit annoyed when people overstate that, like, it was rage against Bernie, and that, like, Hillary Clinton did win the popular vote by more than 3 million votes. Like, I mean, yes, Hillary Clinton has spent her career building institutional support in the Democratic Party. Bernie Sanders just showed up that year, basically, as he's an independent in Vermont.
Right. So you, as you were saying, your politics progressed after that that failure in 2020.
But then I kind of got disillusioned with it, especially when it came to 2024, and I felt that it was basically...
Okay, this is the difference between where I was, and I just use myself as a comparison because I'm autistic, and that's how autistic people often learn. Well, Natalie's being disillusioned. I was coming back into thawing out back into my foundational beliefs, because there was a moment where we were disillusioned where I was like, fuck politics. Like, politics sucks. And even though I was locally voting and engaging in some level of political movement, I was also like, fuck this. But also I recovered. You're right. A lot of you saw me go through that stage where I was just like, fuck all this noise. And then I recovered, and I'm saying, what's taking you so long, girly? Let's go. In the same way that you guys were like, Brittany, what are you doing? I was like, I'm going through something right now, girls. And that's why I say the personal is political as well. When I'm going through something personally, it will impact my politics. That's why you have to really know your values. So while you're going through something personal, it does not impact your politics. That's where I want you to get to. I want you to get to the point that no matter how much you're suffering, you don't become bigoted, or don't think, oh, well, why can this person get their school loans paid for, but I didn't get my school loans paid for? Stop. Do the right thing no matter what. Even if you feel like you're suffering unnecessarily, like, even when you're suffering, you can't wish struggle on other people. Okay, so that's where I want to get people to, if they want to get there. You don't have to, though. You could just keep doing what you're doing. But if you would like to, it would free you of the burden. You will feel more free. You will feel liberated. Your spirit will feel liberated, not feeling like, the world is like, and I'm just and just, you know what I'm saying? Okay.
Like, desperately urgent to vote for Kamala Harris, and I was getting a lot of aggressive pushback on that idea from the left. So I felt kind of politically isolated by the thing. by feeling that it was important to vote for Kamala Harris, I felt politically isolated in 2024. And now I kind of just don't know what to do. And have kind of just adopted this sort of stoic, almost like submissive or defeatist attitude towards politics, which I hope, I hope that things will improve, though I don't necessarily expect it. I think that there needs, what I see as the main problem on the left is there's this gap between the online leftist podcast sphere and like the liberal middle-aged women who canvass for the Democratic Party. Like,
the normie vote?
Yeah, the normie vote. But there's like no non-normie vote almost.
You're telling me that like people in middle America are not like Marxist, Leninist, Maoists?
Yes, that is what I'm saying.
Huh.
I mean, they're not Marxist, Leninist.
It's news to me because I have a lot of.
I want to hear that again.
You're telling me that like people in middle America are not like Marxist, Leninist, Maoists?
Yes, that is what I'm saying.
Huh.
I mean, they're not Marxist, Leninist.
It's news to me because I have a lot of discords.
I think that despite the impression that you get in certain online spaces, I think that like Marxist, Leninist, Maoist ideology is probably off-putting to most American voters. It's like, again, maybe things have changed a lot since 2012, but a lot of people felt that the Affordable Care Act was too communist. So, I mean, maybe that's different now.
I think it might.
I think it might be.
But it's also, I mean, Medicare for All is kind of old news to people now. So we'll see what develops. I wanted to bring this up though, as referencing in an interview with Riley Grace Rochon, you were talking about a Discord server that you used to run at some point, where there was a big factional split that opened up, where the conversation was about whether it was racist to be a Marxist, Leninist, Maoist, and you were like, okay, I'm just turning this thing off. So what portion of the kind of left-wing audience that you acquired within that time kind of caused you to progress in your political views as well?
Ooh, progress is a funny word.
The audience kind of lead me to.
When you see how your
see, listen to that.
Left-wing audience that you acquired within that time kind of caused you to progress in your political views.
Okay, progress in your political views.
As well.
Did the audience kind of lead me to?
And I wonder if it's a subconscious catch, because Natalie realizes she didn't go more progressive. They did not inspire her to become more progressive. Maybe.
When you see how your work is reflected by the actual audience and you think that, actually, this is not what I was trying to advance, that changes your views and you have to kind of recalibrate.
Well, I have been often surprised by how many people become like communists after watching my videos, because I'm not and have never been a communist. And I don't think that I'm arguing for communism, but
What kind of communist?
Well, a variety of kinds. But the thing is, like,
wait, Chad is saying I heard regress. I heard progress. Did you guys hear regress?
Surprised by how
your views and you have to kind of recalibrate. I think that time kind of caused you to progress in your political views.
Progress.
a communist.
Okay, Chad said Freud vibes. Natalie basically is like a Freud girly. Why are so many centristy girls Freud girlies? It's, you know what I'm saying? But like, isn't that interesting? Oh, Chad said it's a joke, regress. Oh. But like Natalie in this conversation talks a lot about Freud and how much she likes Freud. And I'm just like, okay, I don't know what's going on here.
I don't think that I'm arguing for communism, but
what kind of communism?
Well, a variety of kinds. But the thing is, like, I've never really considered myself to be on the radical left in terms of the fact that I'm not a. I mean, what am I? I'm like a social democrat.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm on the left wing of the Democratic Party. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Right. So like my favorite politicians are people like AOC.
Okay, she's coming out. Believe people when they tell you who they are. She's coming out. She's telling us who she is. You have to believe her. Believe her. This is a recent interview. It just happened. She's back in the spotlight. She's telling us who she is. I'm listening. I accept you. Thank you.
Like Mamdani. This is where my political allegiance is.
Okay.
I don't really. I mean, I guess it's very pragmatic too, because I think that one thing I think is an obstacle to me communicating with a lot of people on the far left is many people on the far left have like strong ideological.
Okay, pause. Guys, if you mention Natalie's lisp one more time, I'm going to ban you. 1, it could be a disability related thing. 2, you don't know why the fuck she's doing that. And you bringing it up every time is just going to make people with lisps feel bad. If I see that one more time, I'm going to ban you. And I don't unban people. So fucking tread lightly. Thank you.
Convictions about what they think is like the ideal type of society, like, and which to me seems almost like a kind of Plato's Republic activity that they're engaging in. Because to me, like I'm a social democrat. Am I like do I feel like a deep allegiance to capitalism? No. Like, but I just live in a society where capitalism is deeply entrenched. So my pragmatic solution to that is like, look, let's make capitalism suck less somewhat, right? I think if I lived in a society where socialism was deeply entrenched, I probably would not be advocating for capitalist revolution. I would be advocating for a less bad form of socialism than whatever that was.
Yeah.
You know, maybe we can have a few free markets as a treat.
Yeah, Chad says, what does she mean by radical left? Girl, if I, honestly, I think this is what I'm trying. You're right. What does she mean by that?
Like I think that's probably what I would be doing. Like I think that on some level, the kind of non-revolutionary tendency is like a person.
Yes. Okay, chap. Exactly. She knows she used the aesthetics of socialism to promote her video essays, work on cultural issues. And she can't understand why her audience needed or moved further left than her. This is why I'm saying I knew this when I knew Natalie very briefly. I didn't know her very deeply, but I knew her just enough. There was enough that happened during our time together that I was like, oh, you're not like embodying, girly. You're not embodying, right? This was one of those examples. Your aesthetic, the way she spoke. When I first met her, I was like so excited to talk about philosophy with her. And there was nothing. Without her script, nothing. And I was like, are you not I'm like reading thousands of books. I'm like obsessed with it. I'm like, oh my God, let's talk about it. Right? I'm like so excited. Nothing. And I'm like, what's happening? And this is why I say it's what I realized, what I needed to do. The reason my channel is the way that it is, the reason I do the work that I do, the reason I'm creating my own philosophical framework is to explain to you that truth must be discovered and all of us are the problem and yet all of us are the solution. And yet the world does not revolve around us as humans, right? We are nature experiencing itself. We are all flawed. The world is the way that it is because of all of us. And yet, okay, the mirror is the scariest thing for every person on this planet. I mean, Trump couldn't do it if it's, you know what I mean? To save his life. He can't look in the mirror, right? So, you look at the world, and I think the issue is that philosophically speaking, it's the same no matter who does it when they do it. All of us can't look in the mirror. That is the universal human experience. So you must force yourself uncomfortable to the point of almost wanting to die to look at yourself and say, who am I? Who am I in the story? Is this who I want to be? And if this is the hill I'm about to die on, why? Is to ask yourself, how did I get here? For her to be so surprised, for her to have the aesthetic that she did, to be the person that she was, and for her to be like, I've never been a communist and I'll never be a communist. I'm like, really? Like, not even a little bit? Like, are you saying communism is bad? Like, what's your view on communism? Are you like poo-pooing communism? So then are you greenlighting capitalism? Saying you're a social democrat to me basically might also just mean you're a capitalist. So I'm going to need to understand what you mean by that, right? Like, do you mean like socialism plus capitalism? Do you mean like what do you mean by socialism? Like, I have questions.
Thing more than it is an ideological thing for me. Like, I think it's not that I think abolishing capitalism is bad for ideological reasons. I just think it's unlikely to occur in my lifetime in the United States. Well, I guess I think of it as like, it's alcoholism 101. You have the serenity to accept the things you cannot change. You have the courage to change what you can. And you have the wisdom to know the difference. So I think we're arguing about like, the topic of abolishing capitalism. Is this a serenity problem? Is it a courage problem? Is it a wisdom problem? I think a lot of my critics on the left think it's a courage problem, right? They think that I am a sort of like cowardly sellout lib shit or whatever. Whereas I think that they have a wisdom problem in that they are trying to, or a serenity problem, I'm not sure which. Like, they're trying to change a thing that's not going to change, like not realistically in any kind of like short or middle time.
Okay, but she's not radically accepting. I tell you this right now, humanity will be the same way for always, and you still should try it because it only can change when you've accepted it. And I say this too, I have a very similar statement that I make that sounds like this, only I'm on the other side of it. So Natalie's still on the regressive side. I'm going to make you a paint as an example, right? Both Natalie and I use the NA as an example, right? Except Natalie is unhealthy. I'm just going to say it. The girl is struggling and I'm healthy. Okay. And Natalie needs to get over here, girl. Okay. Because it's true, like, you have to know you have a problem to solve it. So here's the problem, okay? The problem exists on both spectrums. The dilemma is that I think we can do something about it. I'm like, we can do something about this. And Natalie's like, we can't do anything about it. But the thing I think we can do about it starts with all of us deconstructing our own usness, with human beings having a level of humility on a level that is almost improbable, but not impossible, though it is improbable. So then you'll say to yourself, well, then you agree with Natalie, it's impossible. No, I don't think it's impossible. I think it's improbable. And that space for probability allows me to change my life, allows me to change your life, allows you to change your life, allows me to change my neighbor's life, allows my neighbor to change their life, right? Just that section of probability, okay? So again, like I am optimistic, I'm excited, I'm stoked for humanity, and I also expect it to be no different than it ever was. Except I accept it for what it is, the way I accept the tsunami is coming towards my house, or the tornado has hit the neighborhood, or the fire is out of control. Like, we're all just like nature experiencing itself, but we are so in denial of our own nature, we think we've transcended it. How many panels have I been on with men that say, oh, we've transcended nature? We have not. Okay, the same people that are like, we have free will, can't get to the gym every day. You know what I mean? Like, we are in denial of our own ability to even make choices, which is why I'm deeply empathetic to like Contra or Hassan or anybody else. But because of the position they are in, I am compassionate. And also, it's like the Zoran voter said, I love Zoran, but tomorrow when he's the mayor, I can no longer allow my love for him to blind me from holding him accountable. Exactly with everyone else, your family, your friends, your fathers, your brothers. You love your siblings, your parents. It cannot be the reason you do not hold them accountable. You must hold them accountable because you love them, because you want them to be somebody you can invite to the hangout, that you don't have to be embarrassed about, that you don't have to caveat everything you say. I love my mom, even though she's MAGA. How free would it be to say, I love my mom, thank God she's not MAGA. I love my parents, thank God they're not transphobic. But instead it's, I love my parents, even though they're transphobic. How great would it be to all have friends who, you know, we could really just say, oh, they're safe, I can bring them around everybody. Now, you're probably saying, well, then just don't hang out with anybody that's safe. But then we get to the problem that I think Natalie is facing personally, which is none of us are safe. None of us are safe. All of us are dangerous. All of us are dangerous. And if all of us are dangerous, then how can any of us be safe? This is philosophy, okay? You know, not all dogs will bite your kid's face off, but some dogs bite your kid's face off, right? So you're still going to get a dog. You might discriminate against which dogs you get, but you're still going to get a dog. But that dog could still bite your kid's face off. Same thing with human beings, right? So we have to do we have to do the work. We have to introspect. We have to calm down, and we have to recognize, like, oh, it's us, it's me. And how much power is that? I just gave you all of the power. It's you. And you're the only person who can control you, so you have all the power. That's the irony. We can't control other people, so we feel like we're powerless. But you have all the power in the world to control the only person that matters, it's you. And if only everybody was doing that, or if only a majority of people were doing it. See, the world is the way that it is because a majority of people are not taking responsibility for themselves. That's why the world is struggling. The world can't be this way, and every single one of us is doing the work. Right? Everyone always thinks that, but I'm the one who's doing the work. Natalie probably thinks that. She just said they're lacking wisdom. She has the wisdom. Okay, girl, show it to me. Show it to me. In which way of your life do I see an improvement? Because this is the same girl I talked to 10 years ago. There is no real difference. I mean, I see some differences to give her some social credit, but there's no real political differences between the Natalie I knew a billion years ago and this Natalie now. So explain it. Versus if she saw me now, she'd be like, oh, that's like a very different Brittany that I knew all those years ago. Of course it is. The personality is the same, but the ideas are different. And that's the difference. At least I have the evidence, and you guys know it for those of you who have been here long enough. And the same amount of people who've been watching me, Natalie, at the same time, who's the only person who's radically changed? And why? Because I'm telling you right now, it's philosophy. It's a real awareness that, like, I'm the problem. And I can do something about that.
Frame.
How do you feel about, so I'm sympathetic to this, that there's actually existing social democracy, there's a Nordic model, and those things are compelling because they work and they're real, and it's not my fantasy utopia. But what do you think about, clearly the aspirations of the people who achieve the Nordic model were pointing beyond that. So when is it useful for us to have, like, maybe less practical politics as a North Star by which we can, incrementally judge our progress towards the society we like to see?
Well, some level of that is undoubtedly useful. Like, I do think that people feel my temperamental aversion to utopian thinking is not, is probably not the majority viewpoint. I think a lot of people like the idea of having a very a North Star to follow, something very hopeful and beautiful to imagine as a future. The fact that I'm annoyed by it is my problem, maybe.
Yeah, Chat says, didn't she start off as a philosophy PhD student? Yeah, she dropped out, but she got there, right? Can you excel in academia and have really zero introspection? Well, she doesn't have zero. right? The ones I've met in real life who lack the relationship with self, didn't work or stay long term. Natalie is introspective. Babies are introspective. She's also self-aware. But to the level in which she is introspective, to the level in which she is extrospective is what matters. All of us engage, for the most part, in introspection. That's why on my level system, you're having a deeper relationship with your biological self. The people at the most superficial level are ones. Natalie's not a one. Natalie's a very much not a one, right? So she is engaging in some level of introspection. She's not BoJack Horseman. BoJack Horseman's a perfect one, right? He's self-aware but not introspective, right? Hence his life. Natalie is introspective. She just doesn't keep going like most people, right? Most people stop, which is why I'm saying don't fall for your biological predisposition of stopping. This is why you don't have the free will, because you have to recognize that your brain, your body will naturally be like, okay, we're good now. And you have to be like, no, we're going to keep learning. We're going to keep going forward. We're going to learn the new slang. We're going to learn the new terms. We're going to learn what the kids are doing. We're going to keep up. We're not going to become old people who are like, oh, the youths. Okay, you have to work so hard. Not as older people, you're not going to put yourself with younger kids, right? You're not going to be the creepos who hang out with younger kids. You're going to be the adults who keep up with younger kids. So when young people come to you with their problems, you know what's up, right? So when kids, start talking about or start making YouTube videos about politics, you know what's up, right? I remember this very funny clip that I, to this day, wish I could find. Maybe some of you saw it. Did any of you ever see that interview with Hillary and Chelsea? What's her daughter's name? Chelsea? And they were talking about trans people and non-binary people. And Chelsea was trying to explain it. Wait, Chelsea, is that her name? She was trying to explain it to her mom. And Hillary was just she was like, oh, well, I don't know anything about that, and I don't want to be that. I don't want to be the adult that's like, I don't know anything about those kids. I want to be the adult that says, oh, tell me more about that. I want to know everything that's true about existence, right? I want to know everything that's true. Human beings, things exist outside of our perception. We are not the arbiters of what's true. What's true already exists outside of us, okay? I want to know as much of that as possible. Okay, yeah, okay, Chelsea. Okay, thank you. Chelsea Clinton. So that's what I want for the world if they want anything. But I don't make prescriptions for this reason, because I know I can't want for you more than you want for yourself. But I send good thoughts your way. But you're the one who has to want it first. That's why it's sad to see Natalie stagnate. It's why it's interesting to see philosophy people stagnate. Because it's like, really? You had the potential. There was so much potential here. And the potential doesn't matter. It's like living for a guy who won't change. It's like living for a girl. You know what I mean? You can't live for the potential.
Maybe, but I think that, so I think you're right that yes, it can be helpful to have an idea of what your ideal would be so that you can work, what you're working towards, even if you don't ever get there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I guess where I object to the utopian strain as I see it is where I feel like it becomes an obstacle, or it becomes becoming an enemy of the better, mm-hmm. right? It becomes an obstacle to progress when any actually achievable goal is seen as not good enough to even be worth bothering with.
Right.
Which is, again, I think the constant debate that I've been in about electoralism often centers on that. These deeply imperfect democratic candidates, many people feel that they would be just too morally compromised if they voted for them. Yeah. And I'm like, well, look at but there's it's gonna be one or the other, and
it can always get worse.
Yeah. And then I think people hate the lesser of two evils thing, because it's not inspiring and it's depressing, and they see it as just a slippery slope.
But it is evil. It is literally evil that we even have to have this conversation. What an evil fucking world we live in that we even have to vote the better of two evils. What an evil display of human behavior. What an absolutely embarrassment to calling yourself the adult in the room that you have given us this option as a country. And that's why Democrats are so fucked, because they have the audacity, these liberals have the audacity to say, America's a great place. This is a great place. It's so great. You have to vote for the greater of two evils. Go fuck yourselves. Go fuck yourselves, huh? As adult to adult, go fuck yourself. You know what I'm saying? That's why we're fucking upset with the status quo in the system and the liberals acting like this is, this is just reality. Okay, girl, doesn't mean I'm not going to do anything about it. Oh, people rape and murder, but I guess that's what it is. Yeah, it is what it is. So let's be prepared for it. Let's do something about it. You're right. People will rape and murder. I agree. That's never going to stop. Let's do something about it. What is the best way for us to get people to operate in a society that's safer for everybody without punishing, without mob justice, without unnecessary violence, right? What is the best way for us to be kind and compassionate and focused on protecting the most vulnerable? Children, the disabled, the elderly, people who are suffering, right? What is the, because right now it's strongest, right? Whoever's the strongest wins out. Well, we know how that turns out. That's not going to help the most people because most people are not strong. Most people are very vulnerable and they need help. Okay, most people are not disgusting billionaires, right? Most people are not even making $100,000 a year, right? So how do we move the world forward instead of settling for this toxic relationship we're in, right? Because we're in a toxic relationship with this government.
That leads to an ever worsening society.
Yeah.
Well, to be clear, like I do not think that we're the lesser of two evils should be the Democratic Party messaging. Nor do I think that it is. But I think that it is how I think about it because I just don't. Well, because people keep, I don't know, I'm just frustrated.
Hold on. Chat said, before we talk about Natalie's frustration, what do you mean by what's true about existence? Or do you mean that you want to learn different perspectives? Yes, and all of it. If all humans were eradicated from the planet, there would still be an existence to observe. It is not like when all humans die, Earth ceases to exist and the universe disappears. We're not in a simulation. The world exists outside of us. We are not the center of the universe, okay? So I'm saying whether or not we have access to that information, since we are filtered through this brain, isn't the point. The point is, I know that when Brittany dies, you guys still exist. I know that when we all die, the world still exists. The world is not human beings. The world is the planet and the universe. So the question is, especially since the statistical probability that we're the only living, you know what I mean, group of people, and there could be other planets with other people or other life forms. So we cannot be the center of the universe. And yet we operate like we are, which is why everyone is entitled or feels entitled to destroying other people's land, to ruining water systems, to killing people's children, because they think, like Netanyahu just said, fuck him, it is better to be Genghis Khan than Jesus Christ. This is patriarchy. This is bullshit. This is racism. This is capitalism. This is this idea that, oh, well, if it's survival of the fittest, I might as well be the strongest. Instead of, hey guys, we're all on this shared planet together. Why don't we try to figure it out? They're saying with their full chest, we don't want to figure it out. You know what I mean? So when we have these conversations, okay, I just want people to understand there is a way out of it. There is something we can do. Whether or not you will do it, that's up to you, Habibi. I can't make you. So Natalie being like, nothing's going to change. She's on the negative side of it. She's like a nihilistic, like, oh my God, it's a floating rock in space. And I'm just saying, like, fuck your labels, fuck your philosophical belief systems. They're all made up by men anyways. And just focus on the fact that you exist on a planet. What can you do about that? How do you be less bad every day? Stop trying to be a good person. It's not working. You end up being a bad person. Just be less bad every day. Start there. So first you'd have to contend with the fact that you're bad, of course. That's the challenge. Okay, that's why it's hard. Versus if you think you're a good person every day, then you already did it. Mission accomplished. But if you acknowledge like, oh, I do bad every day, I wonder what it is. I'm a good person who does bad things. So I have to think about that. Okay, or you could be a bad person who does good things, but I'm a good person who does bad things. So it's like, how do you be less bad every day? Okay, even if something as simple as like dropping a spoon onto the floor and saying, oh, I'll pick it up later. Pick it up now. Be less bad every day. Pick it up now. Okay. Oh, the toilet paper ran out and I don't want to replace it. Replace it now. Okay. Oh, I have to feed the cat. I'll feed her now. Okay. Small examples of being less bad every day.
With people who won't vote, assuring me that, look, if the worst candidate wins, then that will be the catalyst for a revolution. It's like, okay, well then where's the revolution? Right. Like, where are you? You said you were a revolutionary before the election. Why are you not a revolutionary after the election? I don't know.
I think there's a fantasy that they used to call it worseism. Now they call it accelerationism. But like as things get worse, that creates the conditions for revolution. Yes. And that is like a very kind of comfortable subcultural identity where you don't have to get involved in the messy stuff of politics and be in a coalition with somebody that you don't personally want to hang out with. But the more kind of nitty gritty in the weeds conversation around, there are reasons why.
Look, if I was doing politics, like real building coalition politics, I'd probably collab with political content creators with an understanding that like we're going to put our differences aside as long as the differences we put aside are not bigotry. The dilemma is like, I'm not going to put my differences aside if it's bigotry. And that's the dilemma. Stop asking people to build coalitions with bigots. Okay, we all have prejudice and we're all suffering, but not everybody is deeply bigoted. And there's a lot of fucking hard B bigots out here that you are asking people to just ignore, as if those people might not kill you in an alleyway or rape you in a conference room or do something horrible to you when no one's looking. So you have to be very careful with this idea of like, who are we building coalition with, even if I don't want to hang out with them personally. I don't want to hang out with Natalie or Hassan, but I'll be with you next in the march. I'll be with you at the march. But that's not the same thing as like saying only nice things about Natalie or Hassan because we're all anti-Trump. Like, being anti-Trump is the bare minimum. Congratulations, you're anti-rapist. Whoa. Big deal, bro. Big fucking deal. And that's the thing. I used to be here too. Let's build bridges. Let's get along. Oh my God, everyone's just trying and everyone da-da-da-da. Listen, I'm not going to ask who you voted for before I feed you and clothe you and house you, but I'm also going to ask who you voted for before we hang out. I also am going to ask, like, who did you vote for before I promote you and talk nice about you online? Because that's the dilemma. I want to collab with everybody, but I'm not going to talk nice about you. And that was the requirement when I was hanging out in that liberal debate boy bubble. That's the same requirement Hassan seems to have. If you talk nice about them, they'll be friends with you. But if you don't talk nice about them, you can't be friends, even though the criticism is valid, right? The criticism is valid. It is not just a normal haterade, like crazy boys on the internet, whatever. This is minority people saying, hey, bro. The same way the Black community asked Zoran, please say something about Rama's tweets. And the same way that people have a good reason to hesitate around people who say they're fighting for them. But like, are you? Are you? Like, again, okay, when we have these conversations, it's layered and it's nuanced. But there are some points in which the nuance is now just enabling. Okay. And I know because I've engaged in that type of behavior where I thought I was being really nuanced and really loving and really caring. And it actually was enablement, which sucks. You know, it sucks.
Why social democracy fell to neoliberalism in Europe. And there are kind of global macroeconomic tendency of the rate of profit to fall, like big kind of theoretical conversations that, you know, it gets worse for a reason. And I think that is understandable, but it also has to do with like a lot of math, you know, and that's not very sexy, to be honest. Before I get us totally sidetracked, we've been talking about transformations within the left. We've touched on this a bit before, but how has the right changed in the last, let's say, like long 2016?
Well, they've really changed. I mean, I think that there was initial resistance to Trump in the Republican Party. I mean, so if you think about like Mitt Romney as a Republican candidate, the Republican Party is an unrecognizable organization compared to what it was, right?
Yeah, I don't believe in this myth either. I don't believe in the myth that the Republican Party used to be good or used to be more civilized or used to be better. I just don't believe in that myth. I don't believe in it ever. Never was the past better than the present. The present is just the reality coming to the forefront. Because no, behind closed doors, like that's why I was born and raised conservative, as many of you guys know. And I was a Republican and I left because I, being naive and autistic and homeschooled, literally thought people were genuine. And then when I started to get opportunities in talk radio and they fully told me I'd have to grift, I was like, oh my God, you guys are fucking evil. You guys are literally evil. And I tried to tell my family, I tried to be like, they're grifters. And they were like, no, you just misunderstood. You must have misunderstood. I was like, no, they're literally grifters. And then I left, right? Because that is true. The Republicans have always sucked. They've always been fucking grifters. There's always been racist. They've always been shitty. They've always been homophobic. They've always been fucking one thing in public and the other thing behind closed doors. So us pretending that like, how have the conservatives changed from, you know, then everything's just on the surface now. But people knew then, and they knew before I knew, and they've known always.
I mean, I think that like, I do think that Trump kind of harnessed these energies that were always part of or at least for 50 plus years have been part of the right wing.
Exactly.
You know, just the kind of like libidinal drive of right wing politics.
They've been in there.
Yeah, it's been in there.
Exactly.
But like, there's been decorum and a kind of need to.
There's a performance of decorum.
Mitigate the like roughest edges of it. So like I always think about this moment in like the 2008 presidential election where some woman at a rally, you know, stands up with a microphone, asks John McCain, like, you know, isn't Obama an Arab?
Yeah.
And McCain says, no, ma'am. Like he's a good family man. Right. Which is a bit of an awkward response.
That's incredible.
But, you know, I think
and the Republicans thought he was weak for it. In my circles, the Republicans thought he was weak for it because they were all birthers. They hated that answer from McCain. They hated him for that answer.
I think his heart was.
That's why I say their bigotry is bigger than your call to action for class consciousness, even, or for fighting capitalism. Republicans are so bigoted, they would rather their children starve than build coalition with people they hate. Remember that. I feel like nobody knows real conservatives, because like for those of us who grew up with conservative family members, we remember the conversations at dinner tables, and we know for a fact they're never going to trust you, bro. So you trying so hard to like build coalition, like, girl, good luck.
Right place. Right. But I think that, you know, that woman now, she can just say that, you know, you can just say that now in the Republican Party. But
totally.
And so I think that part of why people on the right like Trump so much is that I see him as like.
And remember what Trump said about McCain being a POW, right? He said, if I was a soldier, I wouldn't have gotten caught, except when he had the chance to get drafted into Vietnam, he had bone spurs, which, by the way, we shouldn't even be sending people to other countries to destabilize them. And obviously, you shouldn't even be signing up for the military. Even though we're fighting so hard for people to have the right to sign up, you better not sign up.
Insanity and his kind of vulgarity and sadism is experienced by his followers as liberation. Like it's a liberation of like aggressive impulses that they are tired of having to repress.
Yeah.
In other words, so they view like leftist or like they view like liberal politeness.
Why is there so many people watching my stream right now? Tell me. Why are you watching this? Why'd you click? Because Contra was in the title, or because you were curious, or because what are you here for? I'm always curious. Like 300 people is great. I love that. But like I don't normally have 300 people watching me on a daily. So what are you doing here? What's the thought process, right? What are you hoping to learn today?
Political correctness, as I see it, wokeness, as this like basically like phony pretend thing that is this like tedious, insincere form of like politeness that's thrust upon them and that they resent.
Ooh, Chet says new fan. Love that.
Yeah,
welcome.
Right. It's nagging, it's scolding. It's like this, and they sort of don't believe that anyone really believes it. And so Trump is saying what we're all thinking, and that permission to just be openly sadistic is like a massive relief to them, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of why they're so devoted to Trump. And there's an interesting paradox with the strict daddy thing, because this is again where I think Lakoff maybe didn't see this coming in the 90s, is Trump.
Ooh, a lot of people just found me this week. Love that. Hello, welcome. Because as the more people in the stream, the more it gets recommended. It was my suggestion after not seeing one of your streams for a while. It was in your suggestions. Well, that's good. Welcome. Appreciate that. Chess says, I've been watching your vids for a few months and just recently been catching the lives, or more YouTube just started pushing your lives to me. I know the YouTube live algorithm really sucks. So happy to have you guys here. Okay, appreciate those answers. Thank you guys.
Because of how obscene he is and how transgressive he is in terms of, you know, his own personal morality, which basically doesn't exist as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
People see that as real because they see decorum and politeness and decency and trying not to be racist and things like that. They see all that as fundamentally fake because we're all sadists, right? And we all hate minorities.
They think it was never real.
Yeah, it was never real. So Trump has just said it like it is and given us all permission to finally say the things that we've been thinking.
Right.
So I mean, I think that tendency has snowballed into a right where they're now basically, I mean, people call it like the based ritual or vice signaling, where like people on the right are basically competing with each other to be as sadistic and offensive as possible to establish their like anti-politically correct cred.
Yeah. So you'll do this better than I will. I'm going to try and set up a few things.
Okay, I'm excited. So the next section is enlightenment and Marxism, okay? And why we're drift and creators, audiences, and influences. We're almost done, but we're also not almost done. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but we're going to watch a lot of the thing, okay?
Things here. We have a lot of conversations online about socialism and revolution and all this stuff.
Yeah.
We are nowhere near fucking socialism. Socialism we talk about now is social democracy. The thing that is in crisis is liberalism.
Yeah.
This is a contentious idea. I still believe in teleology that there's this linear sequential progression. Liberalism is now, its very canon is being threatened. You brought up Locke before. There's Rousseau, there's Hobbes. There's kind of different arguments about how this whole thing works. And the new right, what we used to call it before that was the Dark Enlightenment.
Yeah.
And the position that we find ourselves in now is that the online socialist movement has become so untethered to its roots and its philosophical argumentation that it is literally not able to refute these anti-enlightenment ideas. And so we come back to, okay, just might is right, and that's all that there was.
Yeah.
The kind of deeper problem underneath it, so I'm kind of showing my cards here on the podcast. I do not have this figured out. But in advance of sitting down with Francis Fukuyama, I went back, I took that very seriously, and I reread all of his stuff. I reread Locke and Hobbes and Rousseau. And it does really seem like the degree to which we believed that Enlightenment institutions could set up rules and norms by which people would have to abide that was backed up by the monopoly on violence that was held by the state.
Yes.
And now those Enlightenment institutions have become so corrupt that the legitimation of the public, they no longer believe in these institutions. And so you get someone to come along who's just like, all right, might makes right, and it's always been that way. So the question that is really uncomfortable for people on the left is, to what degree, in that this kind of like Hobbes framing of justice is enforced by the public sword, that to what degree do we need to have this kind of might to even enforce those Enlightenment values under which we could have equality?
Yeah.
And that is so existentially fucking uncomfortable that people would rather create a like fictional communist identity as like a cat character than engage in that conversation and have to deal with like the arc of global development and post-1989. So how do we even begin to approach this and tackle these kind of dark Enlightenment, anti-Enlightenment ideologies? What do we have in our toolkit to push back against these things?
Okay. Undead Volgirl member for 18 months says, since so many people are here, a quiet reminder, the Discord is a nice community space. Thank you. The Discord is 18 plus because we don't want to talk to your kids. And it is through Patreon, which we appreciate. We watch shows, we talk about philosophy, we do discussion events, and we share memes. So it's a very progressive leftist space, okay? It's very leftist. So proceed with caution, okay? Because, okay, it's very leftist, progressive, queer, okay? Autistic, okay?
Well, the might makes right things, something that I definitely struggle with, because I do think that, I don't think it's more of a crisis for liberals even than it is for like the people who are on the like Marxist left.
Oh, shout out, chat says, I saw you on Do Not Worry stream. Go check out that conversation I had with Anthony and the boys who asked me about what I do here on my channel, because they were definitely confused when I was calling out Kyle Klinsky. So Do Not Worry podcast. It's the live stream from just a day or so ago. I'm on the thumbnail. You'll know which one it is. Go check it out.
Because Marx has always been kind of, there's an element of might makes right in that too, right?
Marxist-Leninist.
Yeah. Because they're completely against it. They're like liberal morality, which is even hypocritical. And it is a little bit hypocritical, I mean, inevitably, because there's a level in which might does kind of, well,
this is the subtext of a lot of your video.
Yeah, might is like the grounds for the possibility of right, to say it in some like really convoluted, like leftist sounding way. But like, you know, I think that something like human rights are possible because the people who have monopoly on violence insist on human rights.
Because they have the nukes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, and the whole world order is upheld basically by a bunch of countries pointing nuclear weapons at each other. The whole political world map is drawn in blood. Like, you know, like no one wants to think about this. I don't want to think about it because it's like it does like challenge your self-conception as someone who doesn't believe in violence. I think you do have to realize that you sort of do believe in violence. You just like, you have to decide what kind of violence you believe in. And I think that there's forms of violence that reduce other forms of violence, right? So it's about, I think the honest view is to talk about what types of violence those are. I mean, I think
oh yeah, chat said KKK Kyle, does he still have his racist tweets up? So I called Kyle Klinsky out for using the R slur and the B word at people. I didn't know he had also tweeted the N word. Like, this man has no filter. Like, I just learned that this week or something, and I was like, and he apologized and he tried to make amends and somebody tried to out him for it. But again, like, I'm just sitting here like, so he didn't learn. So he didn't learn to stop using slurs is what I'm getting. He just switched to different slurs. Got it.
Existence of a state depends on some level of violence, right?
Yes.
So
he also films while driving. Why do people stream and drive? You guys are fucking crazy. The world is crazy. The world is a fucking crazy place. That adults in the community who grew up without cell phones are still filming them. Like, I get it. We've all texted and driven. But at some point, did we not learn not to do this? I cannot believe people are streaming and driving.
Most of us, I would say, believe in the existence of some kind of state. So we believe in some kind of violence that maintains that order. What I like about democracy.
Do you see how, okay, this, I wish I had a leftist kind of creator to contrast this with, but like, this is the most lib conversation I've heard in so long. It was a very hard 3 hours to get through. I watched it on 1.5 because I was just like, girl, like this was, and I get it. I would have eaten this up like 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago. I would have just eaten this shit up. I'd be like, oh my God, this is so cool. But like, now I'm just like, ugh. And like, that's the problem. It's like, even the question he asked and even the like shunning of Marxists, like, no, like there's something really cool about Marxism. There's something really great about the framework. I just think it's deeply flawed because it's like a little old, but it needs updates. But like the concept is still like, there's something really foundationally good about this. And it sounds like she's saying and he's saying that there's nothing good about it. And I'm like, no, that's just not true. Or the fact that she's like, oh, there's nothing good about communism. I was like, well, that's just not true. Right. there's like a lot of great things about Marxism and communism and the like compared to there's nothing good about capitalism. There's not one single thing about the framework of capitalism that is actually good. And that's the problem. If you just read about these structures on the most productive level, capitalism is so bad. It's just so bad.
There's a lot of things to hate about democracy. I feel like I've been encountering a lot of those lately, but I still do like democracy. And one thing I like about it is that it provides a means to change society that doesn't involve like a massive amount of bloodshed.
And by the way, I'm going to talk about this in my vegan video today for Bert Simon. That's my second channel. If you guys want to check it out, I make highly edited or heavily edited, like 2 videos a month kind of channel over there. Commentary videos, not video essays. I'm not a ContraPoints. I make commentary videos. But I'm talking about this because even in the vegan community, there's a big conversation about like, who do we build I'm not a vegan, but if I was a vegan, I'm plant-based. But like if I was a vegan, if I become a vegan, it's always a conversation about who we build coalition with. I just learned the vegan teacher who I already knew was a red flag. I just didn't know how bad she was. Has a whole video about the N-word. And she makes the most racist content I've ever seen. And she hates when people call her a racist, but Habibi. The hard R, like Habibi, what are we even talking about here? You know what I mean? Like, it's just like and then finding out some of my favorite vegans have collabed with her. I was like, hello, do we denounce this? Now I have to go around asking people, hey, do you denounce working with her? Because I get working with somebody and not knowing. I've done it myself. But now that we know, do you denounce this? Because I need to know if I can support you. This is what I'm talking about, building coalition. Now, vegans, much like progressive movements or leftist movements or even class consciousness, have this belief, like Marxism has this belief, that it's better to not attack each other and focus on the goal and understand that people will be flawed. But that's the question. The question is, what am I supposed to ignore while we're, quote, building the future together? Because it feels like that's what we've been doing forever and it's never worked. And it always comes at the expense of minorities. Always, 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 always. So the question is, am I supposed to build coalition with the vegan teacher, even though she says the hard ER and other slurs because, quote, for the animals? I don't think so. Am I supposed to build coalition with people that keep ignoring minority complaints and stop like noticing how racism is absolutely intertwined into patriarchy and capitalism and cannot be ignored at any, like, you know, am I supposed to stop calling out men who have a fucking aneurysm over the 62 million? Like, what is happening here? Okay, so that's the question. I wish I need to start interviewing people. Because, like, you gotta ask a follow-up question. Habibis, please, ask a more detailed, make them answer the fucking question. Because, like, I feel like I might not have all the answers, but at least I'm trying to have an answer. Ask an answer. Or ask a question, right? Jesus Christ. Chet said, how old were you when you stopped being a conservative? I've seen a lot of people on TT? What's TT? Saying people who voted for Trump in here and have changed will never be forgiven. Do you think that's true? I was much younger. I was McCain and Palin were my first presidential election. I was like 18, 19 or whatever. I voted for them and then I became a liberal. But when I would say that all people can change and all things can be forgiven. And honestly, not forgiving people is hurting you more than it's hurting them. But it's more about, TikTok. I think people are traumatized. I think everyone is traumatized, and I don't blame you. The world is a traumatizing place. I think people can be forgiven, but that doesn't mean they're invited to the barbecue. So I think that's the dilemma we're seeing is like me forgiving you has nothing to do with us being friends, right? Like if you voted for Trump 3 times and then you're like, I'm sorry. I'm like, cool, bro, thanks. You're still not invited. Because this isn't a space for people who newly stopped voting for Trump. Because if you just newly started stopped voting for Trump, you're probably still fucking racist and homophobic. It's not like you change overnight, right? So you need to also do the work and join communities that help you deconstruct all of the bigotry that led you to voting for him 3 times. Do you know what I'm saying? So like, you know, I love that you changed. I'm all about it. But you don't change overnight because you stopped voting a particular way. That's just not how life works, you know? And it's why people struggle because they're like, hey, I said I'm sorry. I'm like, I know you said you're sorry, but this thing happened yesterday. So even though I believe you could change overnight, I don't think you changed overnight. I have seen people genuinely change overnight. Not very many people can do that. Not very many people can like process information, be like, got it, changed. Most people need a lot of time to unlearn everything they've learned. You know, right? Chad said it really felt like the boys on the pod weren't understanding Brit. Even sounded like they never ever thought about their why, which feels like it tracks. Well, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. And I love that James was so receptive to my question about like, well, why do you make content, right? You said it was because your family, there's no one to talk about politics, but is that why you really show up and make content? He's like, oh, I guess you're right. I'm here to ask you why, because no one ever does. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Chat says, so he said the N-word years ago, probably on Twitter, and that somehow eliminates over a decade of leftist advocacy. No, it doesn't eliminate it. It's the fact that he still throws around slurs today. The point is Kyle still calls people slurs today, 2024, 2025, 2026. That's what we're saying. We're saying we could have forgiven something that happened 10 years ago, but it didn't happen 10 years ago. It's happening now. And I'm saying, why is it still happening now? That's what we're saying. Why is Natalie in 2026 doing it now? Why are you guys doing it now? Why is the video still up? Why is the tweet still up? Why are you doing it now? And also, people aren't obligated to forgive Kyle. We don't know him. So if you want to, if you want to say, I forgive you spiritually, but like you're still not invited. I'm not inviting Kyle to the barbecue. He's mean. He's going to bully people at my barbecue. And he's going to throw around slurs. You know what I mean?
It avoids violence.
Yeah. And I mean, even though it is still upheld.
Chat says he called Kristi Noem a bitch once. Wasn't that enough? Was it not enough? The vegan teacher also calls people the F slur. Like, listen to me when I say this. We're adults. I am not forced to be friends with you. Go fuck yourselves. Okay? If you don't want to be friends with me, cool, bro. I don't want to be friends with you. I'm still going to fight for your healthcare and your food and your housing. Right? Okay? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, nothing you do to me, even if you're the worst person on the planet, I will still fight for your rights. The difference is you can't come to the hangout. That's it. Okay? That's all I'm saying. Like, this is a grown-up space. I need you to be a little bit grown up. This is why I don't let people call women the B word in my chat. You can't call women the B word in my chat. B word card revoked. Okay?
By the order is maintained by police and on the inside and the army on the outside.
Sweden has police too.
Yeah, Sweden. Everyone has police. Like,
oh wait, listen to this bullshit.
It avoids violence.
Yeah. And I mean, even though it is still upheld by the order is maintained by police and on the inside and the army on the outside.
Sweden has police too.
Yeah, Sweden. Everyone has police. Like, I think that.
Fuck the police.
It's the less violent way of conducting things, right? And for a time, it was possible to change the direction of American government anyway, or many liberal democratic governments with.
Okay, so chat, when you say Kristi Noem is literally rounding up Latinos around the country and that's where we're mad at, but where do you think it starts? Do you think maybe bigotry allows you to feel justified and take away women's right to vote because they're just fucking dumb bitches? Do you think people who throw around racist slurs against minority groups is the foundational start to them feeling entitled to throwing them into cages? Do you think that maybe the language we use to describe a person, especially in a vulnerable status, is what gets people talking about taking away women's right to vote? Men are arguing about women's right to vote. Republicans are having open conversations about women's right to vote, let alone bodily autonomy. Okay? Do you think maybe it's all fucking connected? The way you talk about Mexicans or Hispanic people in general is what justifies people thinking they deserve to be rounded up. The way you talk about black communities, the way you talk about looting, the way you talk about Katrina is the reason why people are weaponizing that language to not care that black people are being rounded up. Like, that's what I'm trying to say to you. You are at risk. Every time you tolerate, especially a white person, and I'm saying this as a white person, them getting away or playing with lines about what they say and what they don't say, they are absolutely going to weaponize that against you. I'm telling you right now, as a person who's heard a lot of conversations, that when people think I'm especially white, the amount of white people who have told me racist shit thinking I'm white, not knowing I'm Assyrian, I'm telling you this right now, they don't give a fuck about you. They will throw you under the bus so fucking fast you won't even see it happening. And this is what I'm saying. And it starts with little fucking shit. The way they say this anti-black statement here, the way they use this slur here, the way they make this joke here. I know it sounds like it doesn't matter because you know your heart and you're thinking, well, sometimes I say those words or sometimes I make a joke and I don't think that way, except you did just bat for Democrats in my chat, right? So you will. And you batted for Kyle Kulinski. What did you gain batting for Kyle Kulinski in my chat? What did you personally gain fighting for this white man in my chat? Nothing. And now we're looking at you like you're suspicious instead of looking at you like you're safe because you decided to waste any amount of time and your name and your reputation on fighting for Kyle fucking Kulinski. And I'm saying, why? You don't know him. And even if you do know him, who cares? That's what I'm saying. I'm saying when you decide to say, well, what does this matter? Well, you're saying, you know what I mean? Now there's a raised eyebrow. And I know you have good intentions. Isn't that the road to hell is paved in good intentions? The road to hell is paved in good intentions. And I know human to human, we're all just people struggling on a planet. I get it. We are so struggling. We're suffering so unnecessarily. And look at us casually bringing baby into the universe and telling babies the world is a racist, homophobic place. You know what I'm going to do? Have a baby, right? Like, look at the way we engage in the world. We talk about how evil it is. And then the first thought we have is like, let's bring someone into it. Taxes are too high. You know what I should do? Force a baby into existence where they have to pay them. Like, we're not thinking about what we're doing. And I'm saying, if these people are going to be the loudest microphones, if Kyle Kulinski is going to be the voice of the left, damn, can we not like raise the bar a little bit? This is the myth. This is the conversation women are having on the patriarchy, anti-patriarchy side of YouTube or TikTok, which is like, the bar is in hell so badly for men that, quote, all good men have to do is not call me a bitch. And I'm like, oh my God, he's so great. And I'm like, ugh, the bar is literally in hell. And I'm saying it's not good enough. It shouldn't be good enough. At some point, we got to be the adults in the room. You know what I mean? At some point, look how Trump won. People love that Trump said the slurs. They love that he made fun of disabled people. They love that he just says things because it makes you feel free. Right? There's a free part of it. I'm not telling you not to be free. I'm telling you to find freedom and a liberation that is through love and acceptance and not bigotry or hatred. Okay? I'm not talking about what you do in your bathroom in a shower. I'm talking about what you did on Twitter out loud. Kyle Kulinski did not say these words in a vacuum. He said them in public where they could be screenshotted and they could be associated with his memory forever. Okay? We're not coming for his freedom. We're not trying to censor him what he says at home. And this isn't even about that. You said it out loud. We could hear you. We could see you. And you did it on your platform. You did it in your uniform. Think about it like that if that helps. He did it in his uniform. So he's now representing that uniform. Not a good look. Not a good look.
Outright like civil war, right? And now it seems like maybe that's going to get harder.
I love the whole like, ooh, anti or abolish the police is too scary. Abolish the police doesn't mean we won't have communities patrolling or we won't have some sort of construct of safety. It means prison systems are what they were. Cops were originated through the KKK and white supremacy. Prison systems are private entities and public entities that abuse the fuck out of people. Innocent people are right now sitting in prison on death row. We have innocent people in prison right now. How the fuck would you feel if a man in a uniform picked you up and you knew for a fucking fact you were innocent and you have to sit 50 years in a prison cell while the rest of the world goes, he must have deserved it. And you tell me you give a fuck about men or people's rights or justice when you're not right now advocating for the abolishment of the police and prison systems. You know what I'm saying? You are scared because you think, well, better the devil I know than the liberation I could have because I can't even imagine it. And I'm saying, imagine you are innocent. Imagine how much that would fuck with you to know you are innocent and you are sitting in prison, and how gross people think how gross people are to think they're good people while advocating for the torture of quote uninnocent people. I don't care if you're not innocent. I don't care if you are innocent. I'm not going to treat you less dignified because then I would become a torturer. Guantanamo Bay, people feeling emboldened, thinking they are morally correct in torturing these men who many of them didn't even have crimes against them. These people think they are morally superior, torturing people. You're just evil, bro. That is just evil. To sit here and justify, this is why men, in a way to signal safety to people, go, oh, I would murder your rapist. Okay, well, it was your brother. Go ahead, murder him. Oh, now you don't want to murder your brother, I guess. See how tough you sound until you realize it was your homie, until you realize it was your father, until you realize it was somebody you knew? Go ahead, murder them. I don't even want you to murder the rapist. I want you to hold them accountable. But see how they talk a big game? Go ahead, do it. And it's not even what I want you to do. That's the irony. Most victims don't turn in their rapists because they don't want to see them murdered. Most children, they say this, they say, don't tell a child you'll kill their rapist. Because if the rapist is the grandpa, what are the chances the child comes forward and tells you about it? If the rapist is their brother, okay, so don't murder people's rapists. Get justice for the victim. Protect the victim. You don't understand what you're saying because you think it sounds good. Stop saying things that sound good and start saying things that matter and actually convey to the victim, convey to the people that are depending on you that you care and you see them.
If things continue going the way they are, I dread that.
Should the left abandon the Enlightenment?
No, I think that would be a huge mistake. In that, I think human rights are a good idea in particular, right? I think that you can even be, a lot of Western Marxists try to reconcile the two, right? Like the idea is that.
Honestly, guys, I'm kind of on a roll today. You know what it is? I've been editing last night and today about veganism, and I've been really sitting with my own meditative thoughts on philosophy. So I'm very passionate today. But let me just tell you this, not only am I incredibly grounded and correct, but I look forward to proving this every day that I come to work, because I am working so fucking hard on making sure I know when I am right and I know when I'm wrong, and I will be wrong. So I must prepare to be right. Okay. So again, when we have these conversations, let me just tell you, I am passionate, but I am correct right now.
In some ways, Marxism is an extension of the Enlightenment, right?
Yes.
Like it's just a broadening of the Enlightenment project to recognize this other type of exploitation that wasn't seen as exploitation by the classical liberal thinkers.
And there were socialist Marxist revolutions that cited the Enlightenment, and they were part of that lineage.
Or even like didn't the Vietnamese communists part of the American Revolution. I think that it is a mistake to discard the Enlightenment for a couple of reasons. Like, one is that I think human rights are a very good idea that we should hold on to. That even a violent revolution ends with the establishment of a new state, right? And we want that state to maintain some of the Enlightenment project. I should hope, right? I like freedom of speech. I even like freedom of religion, despite its many problems. Cults, for example, right? Like there's a reason why most societies do not have freedom of religion, right? But I still like it. I could explain why if you ask, but I'll just leave it at that.
Do you want to chase that rabbit hole a little bit? Because there is a kind of parallel between the, often people will call Marxist groups cults.
Yeah.
Like there's these subcultural cults.
Well, I think there's a version of Marxism that is in competition with religion in terms of providing a kind of massive meta-narrative of what...
Okay, listen to this. We talk a lot about this in my community. She's talking about consistency, structure, and community, which is the three things science has proved people need, which is why they fall into groups, which is why they fall into labels. Look, I think you should use language that communicates where you're at, but I think you shouldn't go home and identify with those labels more than you need to. So I don't identify with any philosophical framework, but I will say that if I was having a conversation with someone, could utilize labels to communicate where I'm at. But if you were to go deeper, it would obviously be you are more than your body, you're more than your thoughts, you're more than any, okay. But that's what she's getting at. And I think there is something here, but again, she's on the other side of it. God, I can't wait. Natalie, please go. Keep going, girl. Imagine if Natalie was on the other side of this. She'd be a force. But the question was, will she do it? And I can't hold out like a girlfriend. I'm waiting for her to change. It would be great because she has some really good foundational ideas, but she fails it every time. This must have been what you guys felt like when you were watching me when I was in this arc. You must have been like, Brittany, you're so close. And I'm like, you're so close. But will she do it? Probably not. It's very hard. And I'm not trying to give myself credit. I'm just trying to say that it's hard. And I'm empathetic to that. It was very hard, right? Not to get defensive and to do the work and to read the books and to turn around and say, hey, I was wrong. How embarrassed am I? How fucking embarrassed am I? What an idiot I am. My bad. And that sucks, right? So it's, anyways.
The root of human suffering is what the solution to the suffering is, right? Because I think that's what most religions do, is they sort of diagnose the problem of human existence and they propose a kind of salvation. So I think for some leftists, Marxist analysis kind of fulfills that role, right? They sort of maybe overly broadly attribute class conflict to be the source of all human suffering and all injustice, right? And then they propose a revolutionary solution where...
I think the issue is, hold on, chat says, where is it? The Enlightenment was a very pivotal time in the West and did accompany by expanding rights. I agree with the ideals from it are useful. I also think these ideals deserve criticism. You know why they deserve criticism? Because they came at the expense of the global population. We uphold the Enlightenment, we uphold Western values, we uphold this group of people, this time in our life, well, the time in history in which we feel like this was civilization at its, but as if the world didn't exist around it, as if other people weren't doing things, as if it's this idea that that I think is really rampant in conservatism, which just sounds really good, right? Like white people and white Western beliefs, and these things are true liberation. This is why Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins and all these people engage in so much Islamophobia, because even though feminists have critical of Islam, of course, we also understand that I would protect my Muslim brothers and sisters against the tyranny of Christian white supremacy. Like, that's the irony, is like, how can you tell me that you are the bastion of all things liberation when you enslave people, when you are bigoted? You know, it's like this idea of loving these like great philosophers, or my favorite is, I always talk about Marcus Aurelius, because in Meditations, he has this great line that's so fucked up, where he goes, a man must honor his wife and take care of his wife and his slaves. And I'm like, why do all of these men enslave people? Because the great man and hero is a myth created so mediocre men feel good about their lives. It's why men are obsessed with thinking that going to work is sacrifice. Habibi, you having a job is not sacrifice. And same thing with having children. You shouldn't sacrifice to have kids. If you sacrifice to have kids, you just don't understand what it means to bring a person into the universe, because you've been told your whole life that you must sacrifice to have kids. You must sacrifice to be in love. You must sacrifice. It's not a sacrifice to get what you want. It's a privilege. You're welcome. Okay? It's not a sacrifice to get what you want. It's a fucking privilege. How ungrateful you are to get exactly what you wanted. But it's not what you wanted, probably. If you deconstructed the script, you probably followed someone else's script, thought it was what you wanted. When you got it, you weren't happy, and you said, what is this? And then you turned the narrative around to, I'm sacrificing. I'm like Jesus herself incarnate. I am sacrificing, instead of admitting, damn, I don't think I wanted this. Why did I think I wanted this? You wanted it because we're not living in a world that encourages people to really introspect and deconstruct and work for their strengths. I'm not saying things like, oh, think for yourself. Like, we never think for ourselves. We're a communal species, okay? We all have to understand for ourselves, and we use each other to combat good and bad ideas, right? Or to engage in good and bad rhetoric. So again, like, this idea, this obsession with like, what is the answer and what is this? Look at us chasing the answer when it's already in front of us. You think people haven't already figured it out? You think all of the great minds of the world haven't figured it out, and the great minds of the world consist of you and me? You think as a collective, if we took all of the correct information from all of our brains, that we wouldn't have already had the answer? It's just, it's also, there's a lot of misinformation in our own understanding of self. Do you even like strawberries? Or do you think you like strawberries because they're the sexy fruit used in every movie? Do you like whipped cream on your partner's titties, or do you think you do because it's in every porno you watch? Do you even like sex, or are you told you have to like sex? Do you even like what people like? Do you even like it? You don't know yet. You don't know because you've never asked yourself. Because you're not allowed to ask yourself. You're not allowed to say out loud, I don't even know if I like sex that much. And without people going, oh my God, something's wrong with you. I don't know if I want kids. Oh my God, she doesn't want kids. Oh my God, he doesn't want kids. I don't know if I want to get married. Oh my God, he doesn't want to get married. But then you have to ask yourself, do I just say I don't want kids because I'm also reacting out of trauma? Like people who say they hate children, you guys are fucked up. What a fucked up person you must be to think you hate children. You need to sit down with yourself and ask yourself, why do I hate the most vulnerable group of people? How fucking weird is that? Okay? So you know what I'm saying? Like, do you hate children? Or do you hate yourself and you hate the fact that the small you was never given the love and protection they deserved? Because what did the kids ever do to you? Okay?
It is kind of like eschatological. I don't think this is inherent to Marxism. Like I think you can be, but I do think that when a communist society, for example, attempts to extirpate religion, it is establishing a kind of state religion. And that's the liberal in me, is I don't like that. Like I like, as problematic as it is, I kind of do like this John Rawls idea of like, you have liberal political subjects who also may have their private religious conviction. Mm-hmm. I think there's human needs that politics doesn't meet.
Okay. Chess says, how long do you think true deconstruction for those who regret voting for Trump would take before they can be trusted or let in if they want to work on undoing the harm they've done? Does it depend on the age? It depends on the person. I cannot replace you. There is nobody who is you. There are many people who are like us. I'm definitely not unique, but nobody is you. Every single person needs to be treated as every single person. And every single person has a different reason, has a different why, has a different road to recovery. That's why you have to introspect. It's why they have to introspect. They have to ask themselves, and then they need to extrospect, because we can't all be doing the work for them. They have to do the work, right? Because it is exhausting. Okay. So let me tell you this. There are people who voted for Trump in the recent election who will deconstruct faster than Natalie Wynn will. There are people who voted for Trump in the most recent election who will, in the next 2 years, become the most radical Marxist, the most forgiving, beautiful person, the most radical vegan, the most loving, compassionate neighbor, the greatest person who's ever lived. You will never know who they are, but they will exist because this planet is diverse and there's lots of us. Okay? So it's about the individual living in a world where we make up a collective. That's my opinion on that. Good question.
In other words, right? I think there's forms of suffering that don't originate from inequality or from oppression.
There was a human soul before there was the extraction of surplus value.
And I do think that. And I also think, I think the best evidence for it is like, behold the misery of rich people, right? I mean, I think some people would want to attribute that to like, well, that's just the corruption of the nature of the alienation. Like in a way, like the capitalist also suffers from the like inhuman system that he's benefiting from in certain materially.
I've heard people tell me that.
And there's probably some truth to that. But I think there's also just a kind of more baseline like dukkha, so unsatisfactoriness, like to use like a Buddhist terminology.
What is that? I'm not familiar with that one.
It just means unsatisfactoriness, the kind of sort of default.
So obviously our girl's been doing some research and probably engaging in these bubbles. She has a lot of like Buddhist tendencies, but not enough for me to be like, are you embodying this belief? Are you like, and like I hear it in her speech, and yet she's still on this bit. She's still like a bit bitter, a bit like resentful, or a bit like, because again, my criticisms of Hasan are saying like, hey, like you still need to work on this. But, you know, as long as the thing is like, if you don't work on it, then I grow more suspicious of you. And so the dilemma is like, if you're not working on it, then I can't just blindly hope, you know, it's the same thing we saw with anyone before us. Like a lot of us have done this where we give like so much leniency to people because we know they're on a journey. We know how life is so hard. And I agree with this. It's just the difference is that you're the public figure. If you weren't a public figure, if you were my brother, if Hasan was my brother, I'd be like, he's figuring it out. We talk about it when we talk, but like, what are you going to do? You know, like he's a guy, he's figuring it out. He's on a journey, bro. Cause like, you know, maybe we won't hang out as much, or maybe every time we talk about like, hey bro, get your fucking language together, you know, something like that. But he's not my brother. But if my brother was a public figure, I'd also have the same criticism. Right? So Natalie engaging or utilizing this language or having this conversation, though chat's already saying that's an interesting definition because I'm not sure how accurate it is. Who knows, right? The point is that I wonder how far her interest will go. How, like, we had this conversation the other day because Hasan is ADHD, and I understand from a very sympathetic position that a lot of people, not that this is true for all people, but especially since he won't go to therapy or anything, he might be struggling with how he embodies what he reads, because some people want to give him social credit for being well read, which is fine. Like I'm sure he's well read, and yet I'm worried he's not embodying what he's reading. And the same way when I watch Natalie, I'm like, are you embodying it though? Like, are you allowing it to like in a meditative way hit you from top to bottom, or are you just logically seeing it for what it is? Because what I notice we do in these spaces, and we intellectualize so hard that we actually don't learn. It's like when you're an autistic person who goes to therapy and your therapist is like, oh, you're so self-aware. Have you ever thought about feeling your feelings though? It's like, yeah, you being able to identify your feelings, you being self-aware has nothing to do with you moving through your feelings. Actually digesting, actually deconstructing, actually engaging, actually embodying. Right? You're just, and then, you know, you don't want to wallow in your feelings, but you got to move through them. And that takes time. But if you don't even open the door to move through them and you just intellectualize them, you're still not helping anybody, you know? So I get it. I think we've all been there. I think we've all thought, oh, like I'm so aware. I'm so intellectual. Look at the way I'm, you know, blah, blah, blah. But if you're not embodying, then I do think it makes you a worse person. And that's not good for you or them, anybody else, right?
Like state of clinging and craving, that's just part of human psychology. I think there's a restlessness in the human soul that's not necessarily political. So I believe that religion will always...
You exist outside of politics. Politics is a construct created by human beings as an evolved animal species. It's not a real, tangible requirement of the self. It is just it's a construct we relate to or have a relationship to.
Exist to address that.
Yeah.
And I think the attempts to substitute politics for some form of spirituality is a mistake.
Sure. I would say philosophy is spiritual and politics is not. I would say politics is a tool and a construct. We exist to build society, but I would say philosophy is spiritual. Philosophy is your almost metaphysical relationship to existence.
We're talking about people's belief systems changing.
Yeah.
Do you know creators, you don't have to name people in particular, but do you know creators, content creators who have shifted towards the right in the last few years?
I know of them. I'm not in touch.
But not personally.
Yeah, not personally. Well, I don't.
How about maybe not content creators? Do you just know people in your personal life that have like drifted over to this other thing?
Yeah.
What were the contributing factors? If we can maybe look at them as an anonymous case study, what goes into that?
I think that the coronavirus pandemic like devastated a lot of people in multiple different ways, economically and psychologically and socially.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people got, I mean, as if we didn't already have enough like online political derangement, there were barrels of gasoline that hadn't yet been lit, and the coronavirus was a match to run that.
Yeah.
And like, I think that a lot of people suddenly became very angry and resentful and wanted someone to tell them what to be angry and resentful about. And that's what a lot of online political content basically does.
Yeah.
It tells you it gives you like a shape to your anger. And unfortunately, a lot of what people come across as right-wing content of one form or another, right? Even people who really, 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 you would think would know better. There's like surgeons who became anti-vaxxers and stuff, you know?
Yeah. The internet plays a big role in like every one of those instances.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is there, I don't know if I have a great segue for this, so I'll just ask the question. Is there some part of our current media ecosystem? So I used to do a different job before this, now I do this. And the mental health toll of like talking to this many people about these specific subjects, like this shit is not normal. The human brain is not evolved to deal with hundreds, thousands of people yelling things at you. Is there some part of this media ecosystem that is like making the storytellers, the narrative content creators themselves, the people who tell society stories and narratives, is the media ecosystem making them crazy, which is part of this distorting effect?
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like I've seen a lot of people basically lose their mind because they got famous online.
Yes.
And the experience of being famous online, to almost any extent, you don't even have to be that famous for this to start setting in, right? Is that, I mean, the least bad is just like so many people who do this. You just hear in conversations with them, there's as much as people like to insist they don't care what other people think, the obsession with your haters. Like, so it gets to people. It just does. It gets to everyone.
Even people with like 1,000 followers.
1,000 followers,
like,
right.
Yeah.
And their entire like channel is camera commentary on makeup or whatever. Like this, or anime, like the vitriol that you'll get for doing anime commentary is like,
Wait, for being a white creator, or what's that?
No, just for like having the wrong.
For being a white creator, gagged. Oh, he's so specifically bubbled. Oh my God, that was so funny. I'm sorry. As a girly who watches a lot of anime content, that was funny.
Opinion about the fandom, you know? Like,
Jesus.
It's worse than the Marxist factional
well,
splits.
It can be. I mean, there was. This is a more like female part of the internet, but in like shipping wars. I don't know if you're familiar with this.
Relationship.
Yeah. So like,
I do know about
fandom
this.
spaces, there's been like unbelievably vicious online feuds about like which characters you think should be romantically paired.
Yeah.
Right. And then like, because people get so libidinally invested in this, they also like start to like attach political justifications to it. Like, it is racist if you think these two characters should be together. Like, if you ship Rey and what's the guy's name from Star Wars? Kylo Ren. Oh,
how is
Reylo is racist because there's a perfectly good black man there and you're not shipping them.
Oh, that's okay. You know what?
I feel like Contra does this thing where she's in certain bubbles and I'm not sure who she's attributing that to. Does she think that's a leftist perspective? Like, that's what I'm saying. If I saw that, I would say, oh, where does that come from? Is it because they're shipping her with the most evil fucker on the planet? And the fact that this guy represents like a Nazi adjacent force is the racism of it all, when there's a perfectly decent guy who came from that bubble but happened to be black? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, and also like, what do you mean by that? Like, that's just like what I would, like, what do you mean by that? You know what I mean? Like, is it because she's shipping? Is this, but also the black guy came from the racist side, so it's confusing. Like, what are you saying? I would just have questions. Versus like, who does she attribute this to? Like, who is she giving credit for this great think piece opinion? You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't know. I need to hear more about it. Maybe there's something I'm missing here. And maybe I'll disagree, but like, you know what I'm saying?
But yikes.
All right.
Right.
All right.
I mean, it also makes you,
I thought we were past this kind of apophenic racism allegations.
This kind of peaked in the...
Wait, Chad says, I think she's referencing Raw Beauty Christie. She's a makeup YouTuber that has been heavily criticized for being conservative in her private life. That's what I'm wondering about. Is she actually defending conservatives? Like, is she in all of her rhetoric and criticism? Like, when I criticize the left, I'm coming from, in my opinion, a more left perspective, right? And I do find there are so many leftist creators that have been saying the same thing I'm saying. We just have very small channels. And I'm like, okay, this is more my speed. Like, this is more my thought. But we just don't have big channels. And I'm like, okay, cool. And like, now I know that I'm like, okay, I'm not just like, okay, so like, obviously, the way Contra talks is almost like she's saying, and I've had some liberals come into my chat and say like, are you criticizing Hasan because you're fighting for the Republicans? And I'm like, no. Like, or that you're fighting for conservatives? I'm like, no. But I think Contra might be. I think Contra is more or less giving more credit to conservatives, which makes it, I've been there too. I've gone through this same stage. I really have. Like, I'm so empathetic to it. But it's a part of growing and becoming more progressive and deconstructing and becoming more leftist, where you're like, oh, I can't believe she's doing it in the big 2026 though. And I think that's the part that's hard, is like, damn girl, even now? Like, I mean, I get it, but like, even, like these things that I figured like a lot of these leftists would have figured out, they didn't. Hasan didn't figure it out. Contra didn't. Kyle didn't. And I think it's because they are big. In many ways, I think it's because they're famous. It's the same thing I said to Sneeko when, we talked and I told him like, if you take the path I suggest, like if anyone takes my advice, you will not be rich or famous. And people want to be rich and famous. So they will engage. Like whether like Contra or Hasan or any of these people want to admit it, like you are names people say and people know. That's famous. Okay. That's some level of fame, right? Like you are the ones being asked for interviews. That's some level of fame. You have a bank account that is more than most of the global population. That is rich, So I think the dilemma is, I think it's hard when you're in that bubble to have the time. If Hasan never takes a day off and he doesn't go to therapy, when does he have time to meditate? I saw a leftist creator say that, like, everyone says Hasan's well-read, but when does he have time to read if he's never taking time off? If he streams 8 hours a day, when is he reading? When is he hanging out with family? When is he sleeping? When is he working out? Like, I don't know about you, but we all still have the same 24 hours in the day. Does this man have like 37? Does this man have a magical larger number? Or is it because he also does things that a lot of us are trying to avoid, like Ubering for a coffee or sending a delivery, person out? Like we're saying, where's his environmental consideration? Where's his time consideration? Where's his mental? Like for people who are so anti-capitalist, he is engaging in what I would see as capitalism by never taking a day off. So when people say, Brittany, what, you don't even stream every day. Yes, Habibi, because I'm anti-capitalist and I believe in rest. Do you know what I'm saying? Chess says, can you be successful but not famous with your advice? Yeah, I'm successful, but I'm not famous. Yeah, I'm successful. Yeah, dream job, dream place, dream life. But they probably wouldn't count it. Like, I'm sure they see me and don't see me as successful because I'm not rich and I'm not famous. Right? But I am very successful. I am literally living my dream life. You know what I'm saying? So it's the irony of these same communities that say they don't believe in hierarchies or / don't want to engage in capitalistic fame seeking, like whatever. They won't acknowledge somebody who doesn't have enough people, isn't famous, doesn't have a large enough microphone. But yeah, I am successful. They just won't count it as success. That's the problem. So again, the criticism is, why is this not successful? You are successful being a high school teacher. You are successful working at a grocery store. You are successful working at you are successful. If this is what you want and it works with your life and you're joyful, like that sounds like success to me. It's not about how much money you make or whatever else. It's about, are you living within your joy? Now that's harder. Most people aren't joyful. But I think if you get there, and I will look in my mind, if you are introspective and you are joyful, not happy, guys. Happy is an emotion. Joyful. If you are content, you will be less bigoted, less hateful, less cruel to people. If you are really joyful, I think, the world would be a better place if people really realize, like, man, do I even want to wake up and be a hater today, bro? And that's not the same thing as having an opinion. And that's not the same thing as holding people accountable. But do I really want to be bigoted today? Some people, yes, 100%. And then the question is, how do we prevent children from becoming those people? You can't actually do it fully, but you can bring down the probability. When you have a child, you can't guarantee that child won't be a rapist. I say this all the time. You only bring down the probability that they won't be. And that's really hard for us to contend with, because when we have children, we think, not my child though, which is why every time someone's son, and it's always someone's son, sometimes it's someone's daughter, but that's okay, it's always someone's son, does something, they're like, not my son. Other people's sons, but not my son. It could be any of our sons. It could be any of us. Any of us are capable of great evil.
Late 2010s.
Yeah.
But like the point is that the level of vitriol involved may as well have been an argument about geopolitics. But yeah, like, I mean, well, so like J.K. Rowling, to take an example, right, is someone who like is like smart on some level and is capable of being better than this, but she said something stupid on the internet, got extremely harshly criticized.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because her criticism of J.K. Rowling applies to her. People look at Contra like the new J.K. Rowling. So let's listen to her critique of J.K. Rowling and see if she can apply it to herself.
But she said something stupid on the internet, got extremely harshly criticized, doubled down, tripled down, quadrupled down, quintupled down, based her entire personality around how she was surrounded by haters and losers. And then it's just like this madness that it completely takes over your brain. And like you become like a shell of what you once were, because your entire personality is now like rewired around like this constant sense of threat from this criticism that you're reading.
Have you, Clark, who's a producer on the show, told me this, but they're recasting the entire Harry Potter movies because none of the previous cast wants to work with this crazy woman.
Yeah.
So they're locking these like 12-year-olds into lifelong contracts that no matter what she says on Twitter, they have to play these characters in perpetuity for the rest of their lives.
Jesus Christ.
It's incredible. And I mean, they're spending, I think, $100 million on every episode to like, basically start the IP over because none of the previous cast wants to work with her. It's fucking extraordinary.
Yeah, that is an astonishing waste of money.
That's, wow. Speaking of having a big platform, how do you consider the responsibilities that come with your platform? Do you have a sense of the age bracket of your viewership and gender breakdown, some of the things we talked about before?
Yeah, it's difficult to transition from being the underdog to someone that people perceive as like an established big name. I think every creator who gets to the point where anyone thinks of them as an established big name struggles with that, because in a lot of ways it gets, I mean, you're lucky, you are, but it also gets harder, and people's expectations really increase. So, you know, it takes a long time to get used to just like posting whatever your thoughts are.
And by the way, those parents that are forcing their children into these lifelong contracts should be, I hope their socks always feel wet and their pillows are always warm. How dare you lock your kid into a contract? Now, some people say, but Brittany, though, we're going to be so rich. Those kids are going to be so grateful. You don't know what those kids will think. You don't know what those kids will do. Why are we allowing kids to be trapped in those contracts?
Today, because that's just a person on the internet doing that, to someone who people view as an influencer and who has a platform and responsibility to use it. I've been doing this long enough, I feel like I've adapted. And as far as my audience, I'm very glad that my audience is mostly people who, it's not teenagers, which I would not like. If my audience was teenagers, I think I would feel a much higher degree of like responsibility, or like the need to like, you know, be a good influence and so on. I prefer to communicate to an adult audience because I think it, in a way, I'm always trying to like lower the moral bar for myself a little bit, because, well, high expectations are a burden. It's less fun to need to, you know what I mean? But I think that, I mean, what is my audience? It's mostly like it's mostly age 25 to 40. I think it's like...
Has it drifted upwards
I
as you've progressed?
I think it's gotten a bit older as I have,
So it's people who learned about you early on and stayed with it.
Stayed with it. I mean, I definitely do have like a significant, you know, younger audience as well. And then as far as you mentioned the gender split, I initially had a much more male audience. I think it like initially was like 70% male. It's now pretty close to 50, usually skewing slightly male.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah.
I'm sure you know this, but that's like very anomalous for
political content,
political content, but you're also like talking about movies, so there's maybe a genre bleed.
I think there was I think there was like 1 or 2 months where for the first time ever I had more female audience than male.
Unheard of.
And it was because I made a video about Twilight.
Yeah.
But like, or it was a video about feminine sexuality really, but it was called Twilight, and I think it was a video that I made with a female audience in mind. But yeah, I think that, you know, then I made a video about conspiracy theories and a video about horror movies, so it's skewing male again. But yeah, I do think my audience...
Did you do that on purpose also? You picked like the girl movie and the boy movie back to back?
A little bit.
Exactly back
I mean, a little
to back,
bit. I do think that like, well, they're both movies that were highly controversial in the 2000s and widely hated, and movies which at the time I hated both of them. and then like kind of like reassessed as an adult and was like,
I don't want to brag, but 69.7% of my audience is female. 28.6 is male, and 1.7% is non-specified gender. Let's go, 1.7%. Let's go.
Was this really a good use of energy hating this thing, right?
And the most percentage, 55.5%, is 25 to 34-year-olds. Okay, girls.
And like wanted to understand this thing that I used to hate, right? And so I think that, yeah, I do think that Saw video, it is in a way the kind of like evil brother of the Twilight, Twilight video.
To watch part 2 of this episode, you can support the show on Patreon. So we were talking before about your experience in college and teaching and Wittgenstein and all these things. What about some of your early experiences in getting into politics? What was like the on-ramp for you? Was there a particular book, documentary, a club in school or something like that? How did you get interested in this stuff?
Well, as far as, I mean, I first got interested in politics in high school, I guess, in terms of being opposition to the Iraq War. That was my first, like, semi-adult political issue that really grabbed me. I would say as far as getting involved in like political philosophy, well, I sort of got into it when I was at music school. I was like 19 years old. And like getting into like new atheist YouTube, kind of, I don't know. At the time I was very like mesmerized by someone like Christopher Hitchens and his like verbal fluency and his like persuasiveness. And he somehow like made...
Don't you love that, like, for millennials, see, Natalie and I have an incredible amount of overlap. You know when Hasan says he wants to be the Rush Limbaugh of the left? I called into Rush Limbaugh when I was a kid, when I was a young adult as well. I've talked to Rush Limbaugh. We all have the same trajectory. We're not that different. All of us tried to get into politics young. All of us had different trajectories. I definitely think I'm the only one who went down the philosophical route, though. I'm the only one, and I don't know how this happened, except I think it was just my special interest. I don't think there's anything special about my brain, where I just couldn't do it. I just felt so icky being in these political bubbles. Like, I wasn't able to do what they asked me to do. I wasn't willing to grift, and I wasn't about to, like... I always did everything because I thought it was right, even when I was wrong. And I think that's my greatest and worst flaw is like sometimes I'm wrong and I think I'm right. And then that's why I always try to like change my mind as quick as possible and like use the data to change my mind because I know I'm going to be wrong. You know, I just know it. So the question is, when am I wrong? All of us are wrong all the time. The question is, where are we wrong? We cannot be right 100% of the time. Okay. So, you know, when we have these conversations, and we try to decide like the trajectory of our life, you know, I think the reason people's life went a certain way is because it makes sense for them. But it also, like, I don't mean to say this in a disparaging way. I mean it to say just like, I think my life's probably better. Like my life is, I mean, the feedback I get from my family and friends is better. The way people talk about me is better. The way I show up every day is better. And I just think my pathway isn't everybody's, but I really recommend it. I'm not making a prescription. But it's obvious, right, that like there's something to be said about embodying your beliefs, being kind to people, and being passionate when it's necessary, but also being okay with being wrong, right? I know no one's perfect, but I do think the path I took isn't Brittany's path. It's just the path I chose. It was already there for me. Somebody, like our ancestors created it for me, right? For us. And I took that path. Like if there's multiple lit paths, I was going down a trajectory. And I said, I can't stay here anymore. This is driving me, I'm miserable. How do I be better? And I saw this other lit path and I said, okay, I don't know who came before me to light it, but thank you, right? I pay homage to the ancestors. I pay homage to people who came before me. I say, thank you for doing the work, even if I don't know your name, because God knows all the names we know in history book are bullshit. So whoever's name I do not know because history did not teach me. Thank you for making this path for me. And then I take that path and then I keep it lit for the people behind me. But the point is that there's always somebody who was there before you. When none of us do this alone, you know? And so I think embodying this belief allows me to be the person that I am and to be content with where I am and to also not have to, at this age, you know, be excited to debate Sean Hannity, who, by the way, I've had encounters with, like, through the political stuff I did, like Sean Hannity's bubble and everything. Like, Hasan's getting excited to debate him now in 2026. I already had my opportunity all those years ago. And I was like, I am never going to talk to an evil man like this ever. And that's the difference. The difference is that in 2026, Hasan wants to talk to him. And Brittany already learned when dealing with these people, never to talk to them again. Now you might say, well, Hasan's doing the work and you're not. Okay. If everyone did what Hasan was doing, would this be the answer? That's the question. Is Hasan what you think is the goal? Because I don't think so. Now, obviously, I'm not the goal either. You're not going to sit there and go, Brittany's the goal. No one's the goal. But there definitely is a different path here. And I want to use my life as that example, because what better thing to use than a lived experience, right? To say like, hey, this is what I did. What did you do? And this is also a very autistic trait. I mean, half of my Discord is just like, hey guys, what's your favorite exercise? Like, what are your favorite foods? Hey, does anyone have a suggestion on like a book for this? We're basically literally trying to help each other. We actually are trying to help each other. And that is the fundamental difference between my community and communities like my community and other people's communities. It's a high trust community, incredibly good faith, and very, very focused on like helping each other be better, because we know how easy it is to like, become this, right? And that's the point, right? Let's see. Chat says, aren't you modeling a way of doing life better though right now? Me? Is this for me? Is this a question to me? Or are you guys talking in chat? I can't tell. You guys are talking to each other so passionately, which I love. You might need to put my name so I know, but I assume you said, but aren't you modeling a way of doing life better right now? Yes. Is that for me? Yes, if that's for me. I should hope so, right?
There's something sort of like sexy about him in the way that he like would make literacy and political commentary into this.
Also, using the word sexy is so funny to me. They've used it twice now, the word sexy. It's such a millennial word.
I mean, he certainly seemed to enjoy the sound of his own voice, but that was okay, because so did I, right? But I think that then I kind of came to view that as embarrassing. When I got a little more educated, I switched from music to psychology and philosophy.
Chat said, wasn't Socrates taught by a woman? Allegedly, he was taught by a woman. They say his mentor was a woman. And then Socrates infamously never wrote anything down, which is sort of why I made the pledge never to write anything down either. It sounds stupid, but it actually makes a lot of sense. I think when you write something down, you create a cult, and the cult misunderstands you. Like, it's why I won't write down philosophy stuff. Like my framework that I'm working on, it will be a verbal lesson that we give to people. You know what I mean? Chet says, are you a millennial? Yes, I'm going to be 37 in May. I am a millennial.
I used to love, and still do actually, love Slavoj Žižek's,
sure,
especially his was it Pervert's Guide to Cinema.
So good.
I love that movie.
Yeah,
and that is a proto video essay. Is what that is. That's I mean, it was directed by Sophie Fiennes, I think.
Set design and everything.
Yeah. But that's an early video essay, early leftist video essay.
Yeah.
In a way that those movies are like RedTube before RedTube.
I made a video homage to that piece also.
Really?
I fucking absolutely love it. I used to show it in my class. So Zizek was
I
part of your
those.
onboarding?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I guess, as far as video essays are concerned, it was like FilmTube that I feel like really kind of got me to come
movie reviews,
because that's where like the best, I would say, skills of video essays originated, and commentary on. I mean, it must have been like 2010 or something. There was this viral review of the Star Wars prequels by a channel called Red Letter Media.
Okay.
And it was this review that was it's done in character as this like serial killer alcoholic who's reviewing the Star Wars prequels. And it was like so much funnier and so much like better organized than like the vlog style of YouTubing I was used to at that time. It made an impression on me. And I think it made an impression on a lot of YouTubers my age who do video essays now. Very influential.
Red Letter Media.
Yeah.
I like that Josh doesn't know who anybody is, and I'm kind of annoyed that he doesn't know who anybody is. Not that everyone's in the same corner of the internet, but I don't know if it makes him a better interviewer, but it just makes me laugh that he's like, oh, who is this? Oh, what is this? And I'm like, I am chronically online, apparently.
Was that the Scarlet Letter, or what's the reference in there?
I actually don't know.
No.
Does it sound kind of vaguely communist too?
It does. They're not communists though.
Okay.
They're just a bunch of guys in the...
What's up with this obsession with communists and Marxists? Do you know what I mean? Like, that didn't even cross my mind.
That's more in the Midwest. I don't even know if they're progressive. They're just film reviewers.
I assume that all criticism is somehow progressive, but I realize that is...
that is a default thought process. Like and that's the word with progressive too. That's why people say leftist, guys, because liberals think they're progressive because they're progressing. But that's why we also specify, are you a leftist? Are you anti-capitalist? Because a lot of liberals do give themselves social credit of being progressive, right? Is this a racist thing? Is this racist? I can't tell. I got a super chat, and when stuff like this gets sent and with a clown emoji, I'm assuming this is racist. So I'm right. Does anybody want to tell me? Because I'm going to block it. What is this? I don't want to read it out loud. It feels very suspicious, right? It's bad, right? I'm autistic. Is this bad? I'm going to block it. I'm going to do it. You know what? Fuck it. Don't write me weird comments. Thanks for the super chat, though. Bye, blocked, bitch. Only I can, okay. It's not racist. It looks racist. What is it? I blocked it, though. You said it's not racist, LOL. Wait, should I bring them back? I can only bring you back right now. Why do people write weird fucking comments? See, I don't know. They said it's not racist, but then I already deleted them. Hold on, look at the other activity. Hold on, I can see their former comments. Let me see. Joined 4 years ago, no subscribers. It's not racist. Okay. What was the commentary? Hold on, let me see. Hold on, bro. If you're still watching, hold on. I don't see any other comments from you because it's not loading. But it seems suspicious. If I bring you back, do you want to explain it? But I have to bring you back now while it's live. Because if I let end stream, I'm never gonna bring you back. Okay, I unhid you. Explain yourself. Explain yourself. Otherwise, I'm gonna block you.
Not actually the case.
I don't think it's actually the case.
That's like a hazard of going to like art school, I guess.
Yeah. No, I don't think they're especially progressive. In fact, they were sort of like edgy and transgressive in that like. They're a little older though, so it wasn't like in a 4chan way.
Yeah.
It was kind of in a. Some of the humor has like aged badly. Like there was like a running joke about him having like a woman he had abducted locked in the basement.
Oh, you said I wrote random words to troll and get this reaction. Okay, well, I'm gonna block you now. Thanks for telling me. Blocked. Thanks for the super chat.
Okay.
My Steelman interpretation of this is that, so what is the joke with that? I mean, is it misogynistic? Like, yeah. But also, I feel like the joke was kind of like, what is the kind of person that makes a 5-hour review of Star Wars prequels?
Wow.
The kind of person who has a woman change in his basement.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Okay. Well, fairly argued. What about following that? So bring us from like 2010 to 2016. Were there other formative influences? Maybe
Okay, but this is it. We're almost done wrapping this up.
In the field of psychology, philosophy, stuff like that.
Well, when I was as an undergraduate, I got very into critical theory. I got very into, I think I read most of the like major critical theory canon. Are we
talking about Frankfurt School? Or
yeah,
like
Frankfurt School, but also the kind of like, John Berger and
hell yeah,
Society of the Spectacle and Baudrillard and like all that stuff. And philosophy, I mean, I was getting a PhD in Northwestern, which is it's like a kind of continental leaning department that's still sort of grounded in like Anglo-Kantianism, if that means anything. If I had stayed, I probably would have ended up doing something on like aesthetics in like Kant and Hegel or something. I have no regrets about not doing that. But yeah, like I said, the only course I taught as a full professor was this course on Wittgenstein. Yeah. And Wittgenstein to me is kind of an anti-philosopher, the late Wittgenstein anyway. In the philosophical investigations, what he's doing is kind of like teaching you like how to stop getting trapped in the like puzzle box of philosophy of language, which is kind of a waste of time and a misunderstanding of language, which is, he argues, like based on use. It's not there's like this Platonic tradition in Western philosophy that tries to understand like what is beauty really, what is justice really, and it sees words as pointing to a concept and the concept as something that actually exists. And so Wittgenstein is trying to get you to not see language this way, and see more. So it's kind of anti-philosophy, which also kind of contributed to me not wanting to do philosophy, I think.
Really?
That's Wittgenstein's gift to me. He saved me from a lifetime of having to do philosophy. Like
you pilled yourself in the process.
Yeah. I was cured.
Man, this would be a great transition here for this next question, but I'm going to take a tangent.
Okay.
How do you feel about this kind of canon, or like, let's call it post-Marxist, Baudrillard, I don't know, Foucault, this kind of thing, the philosophy that is in vogue in the Western Academy, that thing came into prominence at the same time when we saw left-wing intellectuals move into the academy and become like very disconnected from the workers' movement and stuff like this. How do you now reflect on Baudrillard? Was very influential for me. It was like, I think that was one of my first serious, like, I like theory. I think a lot of people have that experience.
Artists always like Baudrillard.
Who?
Artists.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So simulation, simulacra, this kind of thing. It's great. Great memes as well. But how do you reflect back on that canon now? Like, maybe we can take them as separate topics, like Baudrillard and Foucault, for example, but like, the academic elite has kind of like run wild with these things, and I think applied them unproductively.
For the record, look, I'm not in the academic bubble, but this is the type of philosophical conversation I actually hate. Because it is the kind of philosophy that I think like Tommy Curry criticizes, where it's like you're just talking about abstract ideas and you're not engaging or applying it to your life. And I think sometimes I even get that criticism about my own work, that it's like it's too abstract, but I really think it applies directly to your life. Like I really think there's a material value to the work that I do. But it feels like they're having a conversation of like very on the surface, but it's using language that I think average people would be like, oh my God, this must be an amazing conversation. I'm like, absolutely nothing is being said. Like, I need you to know this conversation was 3 hours of absolutely nothing being said. Everything was surface level. They never went deeper. There was no follow-up conversations. There was no like getting down to the nitty gritty of it. Like, the interviewer is good. Like Josh is good at interviewing, or Joshua, and Natalie's like a fine guest and everything, but nothing was said for 3 fucking hours. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ, where was the material value of this? And I get it. I do. And so like, yeah, I just, it is what it is. Like, this is it. Like, this is basically the end of the conversation, right? Oh, they did it again. Super chat with, oh wait, was this a meme? Ashley, how is it is this a, my mods got you, bro. My mods got you. I couldn't tell if you were somebody memeing. Guys, don't meme it. If you copy a troll comment, you will be considered a troll and we will block you. Because like, look, I don't have an audience of young people. I have an audience of adults. So if you imagine you're an adult and you're engaging in this way, do you know what I mean? Like, this is a pretty serious space, even though we make jokies. We're not like, this is an XQC stream. You know what I'm saying? This isn't a Destiny stream, okay? This isn't a gamer stream. Thank you. So I need you to like, you know what I mean? I know boy streams, they all super chat weird trolly comments and people just don't care. Not over here, partner. Not over here.
Shall we say, in different occasions.
For decades too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess I've read a lot of Foucault. I've TA'd a class on Foucault. I guess I kind of look back on him as cringe. I guess because to me, I just can't. Yeah. I can't like get rid of the association with like very serious.
Chat says, do you see different ContraPoints from the one you met a couple years ago? Well, I met Contra many years ago. Like I think I knew Contra in 20. I knew Natalie before she was Natalie. When I met Natalie, she wasn't Natalie. She was a different person. So I've known Natalie a bit. Like I knew her a long time ago. And then I knew Natalie around the time that you guys started to know Natalie, right? And then I think the last time I saw her was must have been 2017 or 2018 or something like that, because I was on a road trip and I stayed at her house. So whenever I did that road trip, right? But I knew Natalie before that. I knew Natalie a long time ago. So the Natalie you see now is very different than the Natalie I knew way back then, right? You know what I mean? Chat said, girl, just ignore it. You're getting money. Thanks for the super chat from the C word. No, I'm going to block you too. Because why would your username be the C word? You know what I'm saying? No, I'm going to block you too. Guys, I don't know what you think I'm doing here, but I'm not in that space. I don't know what you think I'm doing here. And by the way, it's very almost impossible for you to get your money back from YouTube. So, thanks for giving me your money, I guess. Like, but you know, you have to understand, right? Like, that's not what we do here. You cannot, through your entitlement, throw money my way and say, if I pay you, I get to abuse you. We don't do that here. It doesn't matter how much money you throw at me. I've turned down plenty of money, way more money than you could afford to give me. So, okay, the Natalie here is much more put together. She is more grounded. I think she's also scared. I think she's probably more scared in a way. I think she's more secure in who she is than the Natalie I used to know. I think the Natalie I knew at that time was very searching, figuring out who she was, feeling good in herself, right? Very young, very, different. But this Natalie is much more put together. This Natalie is much more grown. This Natalie, I think, is really different in many ways, in the sense that I think she is trying to challenge herself, I think she just probably took all the mirrors down in her house. It's a metaphor. So I feel like she is trying to look in the mirror, but she forgot to put the mirrors up in the house a little bit. So she's just circling the hallways, like ranting and maybe reciting philosophy to herself. You know what I mean? So I think that this Natalie is a better person and a more introspective person. I just think that it's a very stagnant type of introspection. I would love to see her get to the other side of things. Like, I would love that. I would love a world where Natalie and I could talk, laugh about that one little bad moment we had together and move the fuck on. Because it wasn't that big of a deal, but it was enough of a big deal that she should acknowledge it to her, to herself, and maybe spiritually, or maybe even to me in a DM. And then we can get past it. Because like, the thing is like, when you've done a bad thing, the people you did it to, they might forgive you, but they also can't trust you. So even though I forgave Natalie and Lindsay and all those people, like, it doesn't burden me in the same way. I don't feel weighed down by it. I also know that they still did it. They still did it. And now I look at them, and especially since they haven't radically changed much, and I go, are you still the mean girls from back in the day? Or have you changed? You know what I mean? You know? See, is this a troll too? Sorry, people are abusing you by typing random words. Cry emoji, $2. Yeah, I'm going to block you too. Listen, I don't know what this is doing for you, but the next one I get, I'm not going to read out loud. I'm not even going to acknowledge it. I'm just going to block you. So donate at your own risk. Okay? Thank you. Let's watch 10 more seconds of this, and then I'm over it.
Undergraduates.
Yeah.
I mean, like in the video about Saw, I talk about how, like, you know, the reform of the justice system, like, all, you know, in some ways, the humanitarian angle on that reform is a little bit of a euphemism for, like, in some ways, an increasing ability to be more dominating or more controlling, right, through incarceration, through discipline, through. I could have mentioned Foucault. I kind of decided not to because I'm like, oh, do we really need another video essay that mentions discipline and punish?
It was,
like, it just felt, felt a little bit video essay 101. I mean, not to be, you know, not that it's fine. Like, it's fine to be doing. Like, I used to do that, but I think sometimes you just get
Actually, let me skip to this normies versus woke.
tired of. I also just found that, like, oftentimes I can say the same thing more clearly without mentioning Foucault.
Sure. Part of the problem with the left messaging is that the only people who watch
Let's end here.
it or will support it is that the buyers of political content are themselves way more radical, like many standard deviations more radical than most people that we need to convince.
Actually talk to you,
And the advantage of these comedy podcasts that then started talking about politics is that normal people, excuse my term normal, but most people would listen to it.
People with 6th grade educations. Not to be elitist, but it is. It's people who aren't well read. It's people who and I watch, guys, I listened to every comedy podcast back in the day. And I thoroughly enjoy watching people who have the 6th grade communication style, because it's amazing. It's what the president has, right? It's what works for people. It's what brings people together, right? But Theo Von is a college educated person. So remember that even though Theo Von's podcast has the level of like 6th grade comprehension, he is a college graduate, right? So I have in the past thoroughly enjoyed a lot of these podcasts, and yet there's a lot to be criticized. There's a lot to be said about them, right? This person says, "Hey girl, finally caught a live. Love your content. Thank you so much. Appreciate you." I think the problem with saying like all these leftists are so extreme, no one wants to listen to them, is the reason those people want to listen to Theo Von is because he's talking about doing blackface with Logan Paul. I mean, sorry, Jake Paul, right? Like, the reason they listen to Theo Von is because he pretends he isn't a college graduate and he pretends he's some like uneducated person and then ends up batting for Trump. The reason they watch these podcasts is because they're able to be bigoted in a safe space, right? Like, you not watching I watch everybody. Like, when I say I watch everyone, I don't mean as a fan. I mean, I literally watch everybody to see what everyone is doing. So I can get I read every book. I watch every movie. I don't only watch things I like. I watch things I don't like all the time because I'm trying to understand what everyone is thinking and what everyone is doing. But it's my job while I'm watching to also be critical and also make sure that I'm not falling for the propaganda because I'm as susceptible to it as anybody else. I watch shit I don't like all the time. I watched this 3-hour interview. I literally watch this. I watch things I don't like all the time because I'm trying to figure out what they mean when they say things so I understand it, right? But other people aren't doing that. Most conservatives, most liberals, most like basic people, and I understand it because like there's so much wholesomeness and goodness in being like limited and basic in your own bubble. I'm not calling you a bad person, but I'm saying like if you are not well read, if you're not reading a book, like it's the kind of people. You remember that girl? I think she was a black girl too, which is why people piss me off about it. I think she was a black girl. I could be wrong, but I think it was. She claimed to have read like 50 books in a year and no one believed her. And I was like, 50? Yeah. Easy. The fact that people didn't believe she read 50 books in a year is so funny to me. Because even though I'm not doing 50 a year at this point in my life, I was easily doing 100 books a year, if not more. Easily. So when people sit there and go, there's no way you're doing that because the average person is reading 5 books or 2 books a year. Sure, to you, you think it's hard. You know what I mean? But when you're in the bubble and this is what you do, it's easy. It's like YouTube videos. You know what I mean? So again, when we're having this conversation, I just think like people forget that not everyone's living their same life, but there is a reason why you gravitate towards certain content, if not all. See, I gravitate towards all content, but I have my favorites for myself and I know what I like about them, right? With other people, and this is the problem, they don't know why they're watching what they like or what they watch. They don't know why they like Tucker Carlson. And even if you said it, they go, oh, I think he's a real dude. You think Tucker Carlson is a real dude? You think Tucker Carlson is a real one? You know what I mean? So I think that's the dilemma we're having here.
Most people watch movies. And so I think maybe to kind of summarize a lot of the discussion that we've been having, that if you were to do an interpretation, which is, I guess, essentially what you're doing now, exploration of Twilight, for example, you can then inject political themes to an audience of people that might not be searching for my specific brand of anarcho-syndicalism from 1892.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a way of talking to normal people and having them care in a way that doesn't involve front-loading a bunch of theory.
Yeah.
For example, right? You can mention the theory and come.
Wait, chat says, I know you just gave this interview as an example of things you don't like, but is there any other example you could also give, please? And thank you. I watch Hassan. I don't enjoy his streams. I do watch Tucker Carlson. I'll check in with Candace Owens. I'll watch, I'm trying to think of things that are in my area. I'll watch, liberal philosophers like debate on panels or something. I'll watch interviews with you know what, honestly, if you join the Discord, you'll see what I watch because I usually share it and then I rant about, or I'm like, I put GIFs of my reactions of like, this is so stupid. You know what I mean? Like, but I watch, you know what I mean? I watch things to know what they're doing. As a viewer, when I say like, that's the problem is like, we talked about this on the Do Not Worry podcast, is the difference between I watch somebody as a fan and I watch somebody for research is different to me. But sometimes I have to specify because it sounds like I'm a fan of them. I'm not a fan of them. But I watch them so I'm up to date and I'm keeping tabs. Sometimes I watch the comedic guys. Like sometimes I will watch a Theo Von or Tim Dillon. But I don't enjoy them. I usually watch it. I'm usually grumpy about it. My partner's like, why do you do this to yourself? And I'm like, because I have to know what's going on. This is my job. Like it is a special interest of mine to bubble hop, but it is also my job. But I do like to bubble hop. Like I do like to see how people think about things. And I hope that answered your question, Chet says, you love audiobooks as well? Yes, I'm actually listening to one right now. Yeah, I love audiobooks. And I've been reading a lot of them on YouTube. So like you can listen to audiobooks on YouTube if you don't have premium Spotify, which I do not have. And if you don't want to deal with ads, because premium Spotify used to give me a bunch of audiobooks, but I just go to YouTube and it's been nice.
But you're introducing it casually without necessarily...
And it enriches their enjoyment of the movie they already like.
Without necessarily appealing to people who are already part of a reading group. Which is a small minority of people.
Any hint for what you might get up to next?
Oh, let's see. I have a couple ideas.
Watch this. Listen to this.
At some point, I really would love to do a video about comedy. Because I actually do care deeply about comedy. But it's like so like... the state of it is so like I mean
You like endless anti-SJW.
yeah. Well, or just like
now.
the Rogan the Rogan dominance of the comedy world. But I also think that like I get frustrated with some of the like liberal critique of comedy too, because I feel that I think there is something kind of sadistic about comedy, like, and I think that I think that there's something to be said about the transgression and the like sort of willingness to use comedy and play to explore the edge of like what is like morally acceptable. Like I believe that has value, and I think that unfortunately the debate about I don't hear this as much as I did like 6 years ago. But like all these debates about joking about trans people or rape jokes or whatever, they tend to sort of like dichotomize people in this way that I found frustrating. Because on the one hand, it's like, oh, we don't get offended. Like you can joke about anything, and then their jokes, like their comedy routine is like a Nuremberg rally, like so it's like yeah, okay, and also they do they do get deeply offended, but when I mean look at the right wing reaction to like the jokes about Charlie Kirk. Suddenly dark humor then so fucking funny to them. But then on the other hand, you had people who just like just insisted that like any
Guys, I don't want to be pedantic, but you can't say Joe Rogan's not a comedian. He literally has a Netflix special. He is literally a comedian. He actually does stand-up comedy. You can disagree. I don't think he's funny. I don't think Joe Rogan is funny. I think his stand-up sucks. It sucked ass the whole time. It's always been his worst talent. But he is a comedian. You can't take it away. Like, it's not yours to take. He is a comedian. He's just not a funny one, at least to me. But he might be a funny one to somebody else. You know what I mean? But yeah, like that's the thing. He was always a better podcaster to me. I actually really preferred his podcasts. At one point, I was a Joe Rogan podcast listener fan. And then I fell off as a fan, how many years ago, right? But I was a fan at one point, like enjoying it as a boy. Because I am a boy. That's the problem is like people forget I am gender fluid. And there is a part of me that feels really good in boy spaces. Like really like one of the guys in a very strong way that's like very gender affirming. And that's why I do like a lot of like I gravitate towards men-centered content, but then I eventually leave because the men-centered content of it all is like very aggressively patriarchal. But like there are lots of men who have decentered patriarchy, and I do prefer to watch people like that. I watch FD Signifier. And even though I can be critical of FD, I really like him. You know what I mean? And that's the point is like, I can be critical of people I really, really like. I think that's the difference. I really, really like FD and I'm critical. I don't really like Hassan and I'm critical, but I don't hate Hassan. Do you know what I'm saying? Like these are different feelings for me. Like the reason I dislike Hassan is I feel like he doesn't see the responsibility of his station in the same way. And I'm not a person who thinks like, oh, it's good enough. The only thing you're good enough is like philosophically, it's good enough. And philosophically, it might not be good enough. Right? So like everyone is good enough. You have to hold contradictory beliefs. Okay. Everyone is good enough. We're animals on a planet. There's no such thing as a bad dog. And yet your dog might be acting badly. You know what I mean? So I think these are different things. You have to decide for yourself what is your thing. Because I think it also tells you something about yourself that you like certain people or you're a fan of certain people, right? Like that's what tells you something about yourself. It's like, why don't I like these people? Why do I gravitate towards this person? Why do I disagree here? Why do I have a problem here? Like, why did I like Joe Rogan's energy before, but I really hate it now? Why did I tolerate this before, but I really don't like it now? And it's also the stages of life you're in, right? Chess says, is it the macro, micro lens? Well, there's always different variations of the micro, macro. Okay, I'm over this Natalie thing. There's like this variation of two variations of macro, micro. So obviously there's planet Earth, and this is what you could consider the micro, right? There's also the macro, which is everything outside of planet Earth. And yet, inside of the construct of planet Earth, let's say planet Earth was the center of the universe because we think it is, because we think this is actually literally all there is. Then there's also a macro, micro of planet Earth. So I always oscillate between all of them, and I think about who I am in relation to all of these things. Who am I if I zoom all the way out? Who am I if I zoom into my life? Who am I if I zoom back out to the planet Earth? Like, that's the question, right? So the dilemma is most people think of who they are in relation to their family, their job, their bodies, everything very this. And I'm saying, what if we are all like here and then we're here and then we're here and then we're here? And then what if it's like, oh, imagine yourself as somebody else. Like really imagine you're Natalie Wynn or really imagine you're Hassan Piker. And then in that case, I'm deeply empathetic. I see exactly why he's doing what he's doing. Everything makes sense. And also I can see also in the ways he's failing himself, right? I can also see in the ways that he's neglecting himself, self-harming. I mean, I would go so far as to say he is self-harming. But of course, that's my opinion based off an observation of somebody I've never talked to. So then I'm making the judgment for myself to see if I have the discernment to say, am I acknowledging? Because what happens is there is this idea that like, oh, he's one of the good ones. But how many times have we heard that, right? Or she's doing the best she can. What do you want from her? Well, everyone's doing the best they can. It's kind of like, you know, when Republicans talk about people who end up in prison or people who come from struggling neighborhoods and they go, oh, I wouldn't do that if I was them. But they would. If you were born them and you had their life, you would be them. In the same way that like they're doing their best. And also we want to get them out of that situation, right? So everyone's doing their best, but I'm not going to write people off as humans. I'm going to write the possibility of us interacting off, which is different. You're not entitled to interacting with people. That's the other part of deconstructing patriarchy is the lack of entitlement to people's spaces. If my sister, who I love so unconditionally and she loves me, came to me and said, Brittany, I love you, but I really don't want to talk to you anymore. And I think this is the best thing for me. And I really need it to find my joy. I would do our checklist because we have a mental health checklist we do together. And I'd say, okay, yeah, seems reasonable. You seem good. I love you. I miss you already. My door's always open, right? Because as much as there would be such a pain there. I know, first, my siblings have done this before and they always come back, but also they're on a journey. I've done this to my siblings. Hey, I love you guys. I need a fucking break from this family. I don't know how long I'm going to be away. They're like, okay. And that thing is, I love you so unconditionally. I respect your need to move away from this. I recommend it even because there could be a possibility that being in my life could be too much for you. Now, of course, like I said, my siblings come back. Right now we're all together. But at the same time, right, there is a compassion there that says, yeah, sometimes even the people you love the most, right? And that doesn't mean you can't make promises. That doesn't mean you can't love people. That doesn't mean a lot of things. So obviously, you know, we talk about this when you talk about dismantling capitalism a lot. Like the thing that marginalized communities, especially older sisters or women in the family know is even if you got rid of the system that is patriarchy and that is capitalism, you still have to deal with the transition time, like with the Trump voter. Just because they didn't vote, just because today they regret voting for Trump doesn't mean they've automatically unlearned all their biases and prejudices, which means even if you dismantle the system, which we should do anyways, it doesn't mean like tomorrow is going to be a great day. It's going to take thousands of years to deconstruct and unlearn everything we've been teaching our kids for all of that time. You know what I mean? Right? Chet says, can we please not spread the Hassan dog BS here? I have no patience for it. Yeah, don't spread that shit here, guys. Don't spread that shit here, okay? Mods, if you see it, delete it. I didn't see it. Did I miss it? I don't know where it is, but don't spread that shit here, okay? It was just funny because when I made that video about Hassan and his dog as an example, his audience hated me and his haters hated me. That's the problem with fandoms. You guys are stupid. Not me, not you guys. I don't have a fandom. I have responsible adults who watch me. But when you're a big YouTuber and you have fandoms, your fandoms are stupid because they're mob mentality. They are collectively stupid. It is a condition of being a person. It is a condition of being a human animal. And you have to contend with this reality that you are stupid. In the same way that I am stupid and you are stupid. Now, you might feel hurt by the word stupid, but the truth is, right? There, you know, when there is, there is just like that thing you have to contend with. Hold on. I feel like I'm so exhausted, bro. I gotta get going. I gotta finish my vegan video. I don't know what this means. Help me. What does this mean? Who is this? Is this a troll again? Am I just being trolled all day today, bro? I'm tired. God, this is what I'm saying. How is being famous helpful? You're just trolled by a bunch of people. Is it Dune reference? I don't know what that means. I don't know. Okay, so it's not a troll. We're going to need a Ben. Who's Ben? I don't know this reference. Is this a Dune reference? I never read Dune. Sorry. Out of all the books I've read, I never read Dune. Okay, you guys, because it's been a troll day, I'm going to be extra careful. Okay? I'm not going to block you. Apparently, my chat says it's a Dune reference. There you go. See, this is why streamers don't moderate their comments because it's too much to keep up with. It's better to ignore it. But dude, I can't. I have too much of a small community not to feel like, talk about feeling overwhelmed. But thanks for being here. We did it. I'm over this. right? Chad says, can we talk about Hassan going to Cuba and handing out $1 bills to kids while he was wearing $10,000 worth of jewelry? I don't know anything about fashion, but I think overconsumption is killing the planet. And I think Hassan pays way too much for his clothes. And I think he engages in capitalistic industries by buying expensive clothing. And no, I do not think rich socialists are good. And yes, I do not think we should all be poor. But I also think like Hassan is superficial and vain. And until he deconstructs his beauty standard, he will always engage in status signaling. And I also think I didn't see that clip, so I have no opinion on it. Right? Like I didn't see that clip. I didn't see him handing out $1 bills. Because there were tons of creators who went to Cuba, and I watched those people go to Cuba because I didn't have to watch it through Hassan. So I actually didn't really watch it. But I will say that I've already criticized his overconsumption and his engagement in luxury goods, including Pokemanes. You can go watch it on my Bert Simon channel, in which I talked about Pokemane and beauty influencers overconsumption problems and this need for luxury goods, which is just so stupid. So, if you want to check that out. With that said, I think I did it. I'm going to go record or finish editing my vegan video, which should be out very soon. Fingers crossed. Check out my Bert Simon channel, guys. It's a commentary channel. I did this amazing video on clavicular, and I predicted in that video he would overdose, and 3 hours later he did. So just so you know, I might be a witch. I'm very sad to hear about his overdose, and I hope this is a wake-up call for him. But if you want to check that out, I'll link it in the chat. All right. And go watch my collaboration on Do Not Worry podcast. Hold on. Let me link it. Go watch that collaboration. It was really good. Hold on. Do Not Worry podcast. There I am in the thumbnail.
You kind of understood what I was going through, and you guys are like very understanding, and like you're not.
Anthony's talking about our community right now and how great we were and how understanding we were of him. It's because my community is the best community. All right, guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you to my mods, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.